Hey, we are live. It is Sunday, March 10th. So, if you're watching on YouTube, timestamps will be in the description. And otherwise, I'm going to be hanging out with whoever's showing up here, and then we'll just be facilitating the live from there. Well, excuse me. Ooh. Happy Sunday, Jessica. Good to see you. How's it going? How's everybody doing today? What's possible today? Hi, Maddie. Hey, Soul Nurse. Good to see you again. What are the best possibilities for this live? What are the best possibilities for each of you? Hey, baby doll. Hey, Abundance Love Joy. Good to see you. I am doing well. Hey, Michelle. How are you doing? Yeah, I missed you guys. I missed you guys last week too. I'm doing well. I have been, what's the best thing to say here? I'm working with physical sleep right now, and I'm not doing terribly with it. There was a bit of a spat with it this week, but other than that, I'm doing really well. Right on. That's awesome. Much better now. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Good to see you. Haven't seen me in a month? Okay. Well, good to see you now. It's cool to see you now. But I do recognize you for sure. So did the time change mess with you? Yeah, I realized that I probably got less sleep than I thought I did just before starting the live. I'm like, oh, maybe that's part of what's going on. But I'm doing well enough with it. Hey, Lame Chick, good to see ya. Hey, Stacy. Hey, Whittaker. I'm doing well overall. I'm doing well. And they're like interjecting. They're like, "Well, you're doing better than you're saying." So I'm doing better than I'm saying I'm doing, is what I'll say, I guess. With all that, whew, man, I feel like I usually have more to say when I start these lives out, though. Oh, I hear ya. Schedule got thrown off, and I'd fall asleep before the live and sleep till midnight. No worries, no worries at all. Hey, Moon. Be up all night. Hey, it happens. It happens. But it's good you're here now. Ooh. I feel like I'm not saying us right now necessarily, but is more collective and just this time period. I feel like we're almost on a roller coaster a little bit. That might sound really obvious now that it's out of my mouth, but like, with the world and everything and just all the energies going on. Like you could really be flying high one week and then you're like really clearing something the next day and then you're doing well again. So the words I'm just getting to say, I guess, for everybody here, even just as encouragement or whatever they're intending to do with it for the highest good, just really stick with it. Like, if you're having a rough day, not the end of the world. It'll probably get better depending on what's going on, big picture in your life, like next week or sometime in the future. And things can change quickly is something I'm getting as well, just to be said for everybody. Things can change positively really quickly. And we're really in the energies where, things are wildly going to swing in different directions, or different and differing directions here and there. But if you stick with it, things get positive is what I'm getting overall. At least for most of you here that are tuning into this and listening to what's coming through right now. But what they're clarifying is like that wildly like swinging change thing that they were mentioning is meant to be a positive thing, because you could be down in the dumps, but then like everything gets better tomorrow. So it's kind of a weird time we're in with the shifting, but it's cool because we can get to where we'd like to go more easily is something I'm getting as well, depending on where you're at with everything. Because I know sometimes people are just in their process and they need a month. And sometimes people are just ready to shift right now. So, take it as it resonates. But we are in that energy where that's supported, I guess you could say. Definitely feeling that the last few weeks. Makes sense. Swing daily over here. That's okay. I hear it. I hear you. Trying to ride the wave now, or lately, but it seems like a tsunami right now. How's it get any better than that? And in theory, maybe this is not the best thing to be said. I'm like, you could still, in theory, surf a tsunami, but I know you'll make it, are the words I'm getting to say. You reminded me I dreamed of a roller coaster last week. In another dream, you were there. Oh, cool. That's awesome. That's cool. I feel like I've been getting a lot of creative downloads, trying to sort them all out. That sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. Definitely not a bad thing to have, is what I'd say. All right. Thanks, Aeroplane. It's been months since I've seen you. You look good, man. You look upgraded somehow. Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely checks out in multiple ways, so appreciate it. Thanks for the verification. Annie Pandy Pie, good to see you. Insanity continues. Well, it sounded like it was very good insanity. So how does it get even better than that? And not the literal, Oh, that's awesome. Got a new puppy. I hope it is a beautiful experience. I hope that goes very smoothly. And should it be in the highest good, and however it would be for the highest good, and in ways that would be for the highest good, may the angels watch over that puppy as well. For however long would be for the highest good. Okay, so I'm getting to start the collective reading. That means I need to unmirror. Hi, so 1 second, guys. I have to do the really awkward thing where I adjust this and my face is in the camera. I hope you enjoy. Okay. So there, we can kind of read that. Cool. So collective reading is meant to be for everybody. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Whoop. Oh, I want to read this. Your presentation of source and how to utilize the guidance. So, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to do that. Sorry, it brought up a thing to a menu. Presentation of the source and how to utilize the guidance has really helped me since Solstice. So glad to hear it. That's awesome. Very happy to hear. Okay, so now we're actually going to start the collective reading. So if you have oh my gosh, the habit sometimes when you go to say things, I'm like, if you have a collective sign, wait, no, that's not how that works. Because I do that, the fire signs, the earth signs, if anyone's new, what is he talking about? But collective reading is meant to be for whoever sees it, whenever they see it. And I'm going to be channeling my spirit guides, the angels, and source, of course, bringing through whatever information would be for your highest good. Sometimes I do channel messages ahead of time, I'll channel ahead of time. They told me not to today, so we're just flowing today with what comes through, and I'll be working with my intuition and all that as well. And I guess let's start. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep talking about it. So, first thing they're showing me is a monkey. It's kind of swinging through the trees, but then there's also a golden monkey. So let me see what this means for you guys first and foremost. So there's a lot that's there's a way that this symbol makes sense that I'll explain in a second, but I'm just going to get the message out. There's a lot that's lifting right now, and that's heavy energies, that's confusion, that's things getting untangled energetically, even in your system. So you might feel a lot leaving in a way that's healthy and for that is good energetically, especially over the next month or 3, even is what I'm getting, which I know is kind of a longer time span, but that's what I'm hearing. So that's what I'm going to say. What else is going on with the golden monkey here? And here's the thing. I don't necessarily desire to get into the conversation about some of this, but the other thing that they're kind of talking about is almost like a curse, lifting in a sense. And it's not like you actually have a curse on you. I get a bit iffy on do curses exist necessarily in the ways we think they do, or do we need to buy into that and give it more power than it really has, which is potentially none. But that's not really the point of it. What they're actually trying to say with it, let me sit with them a second longer on it here, is it might feel like something akin to a curse being lifted, is I guess the way you could say it. Whether you're someone who literally believes in them or not, it's just just something shifting so you feel a lot less heavy is the way it's showing up for me, which is for me, for you to be said to you. So I'd say that's a good thing overall here. And for some of you, it's about like your life circumstances, like you feel cursed. Maybe it's by like someone in your life, or for some of you, it could be a job situation. For others, it's home life kind of thing, and something shifting there to lighten it up in the next few, in the next few months. Yeah, but potentially sooner than that as well. And for about 60% of you, a lot sooner is what I'm getting, like the next week or two even, or 3. Next thing they like to get to, they were showing me a red monkey, but it was like a red monkey idol, I guess. That's the word I'm hearing. It was like a statue or like something out of Indiana Jones, or like, what's that mobile game where they temple run, is something else it kind of reminds me of. So what's the message of the red monkey here? So I'm going to have to sit with them a little bit longer to get like what it means, but they were showing like someone who kind of looked like Indiana Jones, like stuck between these, like not stuck, but looking at these like 3 monkey statues that he was looking to like take from a temple. But the words I heard, interestingly, like there's a jade looking monkey, like a blue one. And the words I heard were pick your poison, but then they also showed like an option where you could just turn around and leave. So I'd need to like see what they want to say about it before I assume anything about it. So what's the message here? So one thing to keep in mind is there might be certain things that are being handed to you around this time that are not actually for you. And you'll know they're not actually for you because they will feel icky is one way to help discern that. Like energetically is what I mean. And maybe for some of you it's like a mental thing, but it's going to be more like, usually what you guys probably know what I'm talking about, but for anyone who's not sure what I'm talking about, like you can really just feel into the energies of how something's going to go. Like you can get the energy of how things are going to be if you make a certain choice, or if like you take a certain opportunity. It's really easy once you get the hang of it. It's like second nature, or even better. But really pay attention to that. Like if someone has an opportunity for you and you get that like icky feeling, or you're just like, oh, that feels heavy, or that feels sad in some way, then pay attention to your other options and what you're being guided to. And for some of you, this is also a message to keep your eyes on the prize and not get distracted by things that seem shiny, but when you really check in intuitively or energy sensitive wise, it's not that great. And it could be like, an example would be you're dating someone really great, working, and then some seemingly hot person over here that is of a gender you're attracted to and all that. And if of course if you're asexual, aromantic, then just take it, it's going to be something else, of course. But as an example, there's like a hot person and you're like, oh, they're really attractive and they're giving me attention or whatever, and it's like, if you check in energetically and like, oh, that feels really heavy, or just it feels similar to how it felt before I started dating like an ex, and then they ended up doing XYZ thing that was awful, I guess you could say, just to get the message across, then don't go that way. Don't go to the distracting shiny thing when you have your eyes on the prize, or if you're heading towards like a dream or a target and there's like these opportunities that don't feel great, then it's like, maybe they can circle back at another time if it's right for you, like if it's a creative project. But for now, keep your eyes on the thing that feels light to you and feels true to you as the thing to pursue, I guess you could say, with all of that is kind of what they're saying. So don't get distracted. Next thing they're showing me is we're still with Indiana Jones, but it's like a boardwalk, and he has like when people walk across a tightrope and they have like the pole that they hold or something like that, or at least back in the day, like the tightrope walking and all that. He's like walking across this boardwalk over like a raging river, but it's like this boardwalk is pretty shoddy looking. It's just like a bunch of logs kind of tied together, and it's really thin and narrow. And then he's walking across, and it's like over a waterfall here. And there's all this fruit on the other side that he's walking towards. So in the visual, he's like tightrope walking across this little bridge thing to get to his destination and these rewards is what a way it's being shown to me. And there are all these like angels on the back saying like, hey, don't turn back, like keep going. Cause he keeps looking back. He keeps getting distracted by like the past and like considering like going back to something. One message I'm getting for you guys is your job. The words I heard are your job is to not go back to the past in some way. It's one thing if something like from the past comes back in a new form or a new energy and it feels different and you're like, oh, this actually feels really light and great. And you like use your discernment and intuition on it. But it's another if like someone pops up and like they haven't changed, it's clear they haven't changed. You know it's not right for you, and just because it's like a shiny thing perhaps doesn't mean it's like the right move, or just because it seems like easy to go back instead of moving forward to something new, or maybe it's comfortable, it doesn't mean it's like always the right move. I'm not saying this totally, I want to make sure I get the words to you correctly here. So what's the best way to say this here? I mean, I got the gist of it is what they're saying as far as what I got out to you guys, but I would keep moving forward and don't let the past hold you back. Don't get distracted by the past. It's like, it's not your future. And if it's something you walked away from, you already walked away from it for a reason, is something they're saying as well. So angels in this visual and message are like urging you to like push forward and not look back in a certain area or to some degree here. I wonder if there's any importance to like the thin shoddy bridge that this person's walking across. So I want to double check, make sure we got everything that's important here. It's kind of like more of a message of how you can't afford distraction is what they're saying, where it's like if you got too distracted, then like so here what I was about to say sounded pretty treacherous, and it might not be that treacherous in your life. I'm really hesitant to like, I don't want to over dramatize this, or it's not the right way to say it, but you know what I'm trying to say. And I don't want to make this over dramatic where you're like, oh my God, my life is gonna end if I do the distraction thing. And I'm not trying to say anything like that, but it's really not a time to get distracted. It's really a good time to kind of make sure you're headed towards where you're headed, wanting to head. And I know like a lot of you are in different areas with all this. Like some of you have big dreams and targets you're heading towards. Some of you are just like, man, I'm just trying to like heal and get to like a good place. But I feel like most all of you have some type of big dream or goal or target that you're heading towards. And if I were to try to just summarize this a bit more, just to kind of focus in and get, speaking of focus, and get the message across to you summarized, it's like that eyes on the prize. Like, what's your next step? What's your next step to getting you to where you'd like to go? Like that is probably it. Whatever feels primary to you as something you need to focus on. You guys get it. So we're going to move on here to the next thing. They're showing me a balloon and like a hot air balloon, which has been popular and as like an intuitive visual that I've been shown for these lives recently, past few weeks here. So showing me a Remax balloon, to me, that's like some of you are moving is pretty much the message. For some of you, it's like a surprise move, not all of you. And of course, not all of you are moving. So that's, again, I'm doing my best to emphasize like that this is just for a subset of you. But I feel like it's going to be a good move or like necessary. So if it's a move by surprise, like try not to judge it or think it's bad. It could be leading to like the best place yet is something I'm getting, or just a great place. So try not to judge it is what they're saying. For others of you, what the hot air balloon is kind of talking about, there's like a rope that kind of swings down from it. And there's almost like this Navy SEAL type, person that's kind of like rappelling down, and rappelling's not the right word, but sliding down this rope from the hot air balloon, almost like he's being like dropped down for a mission. So, which is weird. These visuals are getting a little bit interesting today. They're not usually this trippy, but there's like a zebra up in the hot air balloon looking down as well. There's like all these spirit animals up there. So let me say like what the message is. And that's not to judge the message. Like it's showing up how it's supposed to, but let me see what it means for you guys here. Weirdly enough, the words I'm hearing with it are the mission is over. So there's some phase. Well, one thing I was hearing is like there's some phase of your life that's over. But for a good number of you, and this could be a mission you didn't know you were on, and this kind of gets into an interesting like conversation of like what are the definitions of some of these words when they're utilized by, I guess you could say, the spiritual community, like soul mission or something like that. And not all of our missions are in our face like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to build I don't know, computer, as an example, a computer chip company, but with consciousness and become a conscious computer chip salesman. That was a lame example. Sorry. Usually I channel the examples, so they're usually a lot better than that. So let me get back to what they're trying to say here. Like sometimes it's more along the lines of you were supposed to heal with this person, or you were supposed to work on this issue that was very under the surface, or heal maybe something like subconsciously, or maybe it was something at a soul level, or it was something that seemed like small, maybe to the human perception, but it was maybe big spiritually. And a lot of you have finished some type of mission and your life is going to change because of that. It's like you've fulfilled your quota in some way regarding something you were doing or supposed to do, whether it was personal healing or helping someone else or helping people in a certain way. So that's part of why your life is changing, or will soon, is the next mission, I guess you could say. And this one will be a lot better. Sometimes, as what I'm hearing is, sometimes as we fulfill enough missions, or if you want to think of it in terms of karma, I hesitate to buy into karma in the way it's typically taught by most people, if I'm going to be really straight up with you, but that's a whole other conversation. But just so you can understand the message in a way that might get it across to you, if you want to think of it in terms of like karma points you racked up or something like that in a positive way, it's kind of like you've done enough where you can potentially have more ease or move on to a phase of life that's just different, and a lot of the things you've been griping about aren't going to be there. And this might take a couple years to shift, is something I'm getting. For some of you, it'll be really quick. For others of you, it might just be kind of very natural and very organic, the way it progresses and kind of moves. But congratulations on accomplishing whatever you accomplished. For others of you, what this is talking about is completely different message. Using the right tools are words that kind of showed up. And this is going to sound obvious, but sometimes that's just the thing you need to hear, and it's not obvious until someone says it. And it's like, if you are using a tool, or you're trying to do something or accomplish something in your life, and you're using one way of doing it and it's not working, like, it is time to find something that will, and either stop doing the thing that's not working, or at least try other things around it. So an example could be, not to throw any therapists under the bus, but the example I'm hearing to talk about is, if you're seeing a therapist and you feel like it's been like a while, like years, you feel like you're just getting worse and worse and worse, then find a different therapist, is kind of what that's saying. I'm not saying quit your therapist, or therapy or anything like that, but that's just for some reason the example that's showing up. And man, that could be a whole other conversation about therapists, because I know there are really, 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 really great ones out there. And I'm not trying to discourage you from it. It's more like there are also ones that aren't so great, just straight up. Or sometimes it can also just be about having the right fit for you as well. And it's not necessarily anything wrong with them as a therapist or you as a person. So I'll throw all that nuance out there too, because it's not always black and white like that. But you kind of get the gist of what they're saying with that. Like, if you're, I don't know if I need to give another example, but if you're trying to build a business and grow an audience, and you're just like, I'm just going to keep, I'm getting really silly examples showing up. I'm like, if you're just like, I'm just going to keep posting bikini videos and like they're not doing well, it's like, try something else. Like, maybe you're supposed to grow using your brain, and there's nothing wrong with that. And not to judge the bikini videos either. I was going to make a joke about me doing a bikini video, but it's not really forming the words in the way I'd want to. But, I don't think that would work. Maybe it would work for me, but I don't think that's the direction I'd like to go with it, what I'm doing right now. Anyways, let me see what would be best to get to next for you guys here. But yeah, by the way, I'm not like judging the bikini or using your brains as good or bad or better or wronger or worser than the other. It's kind of just like, I guess, what are you trying to do and what's working and what's actually getting you in the direction of what you'd like to do effectively, is I guess what I'll say with all that. So next thing they'd like to get to here, fully nice, good for you guys. So next thing they're showing me is an elephant, but he's like a stuffed animal elephant. It's not a, let me see what it means here. So they're showing like a kid and he's like running around with this stuffed animal, like elephant, like, as kids do, like they're kind of like positively screaming and like laughing and like running around and doing what I guess kids do. And there is like some of that joy returning for this crowd is something I'm getting. So like childlike wonder or just things that kind of catch your attention and bring you a lot of joy. If you're open to that energy, I'm guessing what I'm getting is there's going to be some of that coming in like in this next week or so, which is great. They're also showing like a balloon and twister and like face painting and like a party in a way, but it almost seems like a kid's party. The message is just a reminder not to be afraid to play is what I'm getting to say here. Like some of you are actually afraid of not taking, yes, some of you are afraid of not taking things too seriously. It's like it has to be serious or else, and that's not the way spirit is if you really look at it. And that gets into a weird conversation as well. I feel like there's things that I don't have the words to try to describe what I'm saying, or because it's like the words aren't quite it, but you get it. It's because like, yeah, spirit can, if you will, take things seriously in a way. I feel like that gets a little bit too close to like projecting on the divine a little bit with like how that all works. Because it's like, who's to say how that works with spirit taking things seriously or not, or whatever. But you kind of understand what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, spirit will take care of business. Spirit doesn't necessarily mess around, but spirit isn't necessarily taking things super seriously all the time like a business person. It's a bit more, this isn't going to sound right, healthily detached, I guess you could say, or just more like obviously conscious. I hope you are picking up what I'm putting down because I feel like I'm not doing it justice with the words I'm using at all. And if someone were just listening to the words and not the energy, I could see how they'd be like, what is he saying? But spirit doesn't take things too seriously, and it's kind of time to connect with your soul, is he saying? But spirit doesn't take things too seriously, balloon fight or, something like that. I think sometimes balloon fight or, something like that. I think sometimes I don't need to get into this conversation. I was going to say something about like, we start to project or judge like what play has to look like. And it's more about like what has the energy of play to you. And in theory, it's totally possible to be like working on a business project, but it's very fun and playful for you and creative and you're enjoying it that way. So it's kind of like, I don't feel like this is what they wanted me to say. I was going to be like, what has that energy to it for you, or what presents itself that has a more play-based energy and go that direction. And like that really livens things up, that raises your vibration. It's not for nothing. I think sometimes we get stuck on the practicality of things like play or joy. And if you look at it on a certain level energetically, it is actually practical or pragmatic, whatever word is better for that, in a sense, because you do attract in better as you're in that higher frequency. Like there's all these quotes I could borrow from like money follows joy, or like think of what you're attracting in as you're in joy more of the time, like and in that more playful energy and having fun and letting life flow and not kind of like clenching your butt and and squeezing your fist on life and being a stick in the mud about whatever. And yeah, there are things in life we have to take seriously, and if you will, use that term. Have to is a weird word, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, there's a time and place for everything, I guess you could say, but try to incorporate more play. Hope that was a fun tangent that you listened to me go on there. So let's see what else we'd like to get to for you guys. So they're still on the party here. We're not done with the party. Because there's like this elephant figure who's like a cartoon elephant and he was holding these balloons and he's like, we're still on the party. He's like, party. So what's up with the party? So, okay, the other message with this is celebrating you. And originally I heard this concept from access consciousness, which is a modality that's out there. And the concept, I think I read it in an article, but the concept is like you do things to celebrate yourself, and it's kind of like as you do that, if I remember correctly, it's like life also moves to celebrate you, or like the universe moves to celebrate you as well. It's supposed to do some positive shift for you and your life. And what they would recommend, which is not what you have to do, is eating all your your meals, or a certain number of your meals, on like fine china, because like the idea is like, you usually save your fine china for like a celebration, like Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. But he's like, the idea was you use it every meal or every day or whatever makes sense to you. And it's to celebrate you and to celebrate your life. And what can you do to celebrate yourself, I guess, is the question. And because sometimes we kind of get into the meandering like ho-hum of life, or just the grind, or just like whether it's monotony, or it depends on who you are, where you're at. Because I know some of you are not in monotony land at all. But sometimes like the days kind of just start to, depending on where you're at, blend together. And so it's kind of breaking that up a little bit and be like, wait, I'm alive. Let's celebrate myself. Like, I matter. Things like that. So the question is like, what can you do to do that? And like, that's going to bring some positive shifts is what I'm getting. And it can be as simple as even doing something you enjoy every week to celebrate yourself and celebrate you being alive and things like that. And I know for some people, I'll dig into this. It's not going to be most of you. Like if there's like a lower place you're in, like a depression or something like that, it might be more difficult to dig into celebrating yourself. And the message is just to try. The recommendation is to try anyways. You don't have to feel anything different while you're trying this, because it's about moving the energies, and it's about in some ways it's about the intention. And you might find you feel different or afterwards, or after doing it for a little bit, as the energies shift or as things shift. And it's not about like forcing yourself to feel celebratory towards yourself. It's like, okay, we're doing this with the intention to celebrate myself, and cool, let's give this a shot. Let's see what changes, or if anything changes. But I'd be interested to see what shifts for you if you do that. And some of you just need to do that more in general, because you do matter. And life doesn't always teach us that through our past experiences or when we're growing up. Sometimes life can teach us, depending on our upbringing and what was around us at the time, the opposite. And it's time to undo that, because that's kind of what people would want you to believe if they didn't want you to have an impact, for example. And that's kind of what people would want you to believe if they didn't want you to have an impact, for example. And that's not to make it a conspiracy theory at all, but it's something to consider. Would be like, well, if people didn't want you connected to life, making an impact, thinking you mattered and could do something, what would they teach you? Probably not that you mattered and that you are a part of this world, and what you choose makes an impact and you can have an impact. Probably. Yeah. So not saying anyone was trying to do that to you at all, but I think what I'm getting to get to you is you do matter and you do have an impact, and celebrating you is a way to get the energies flowing to celebrate you as well. So that kind of brought in a couple different, and celebrating you is a way to get the energies flowing to celebrate you as well. So that kind of brought in a couple different side messages I wasn't expecting, but that I don't really expect anything for this. So let's see, except for maybe a few things. I just do my best. Anyways, next thing I'd like to get to, we're back into like the monkey territory, sort of, because they're showing me a baboon here, and he's doing the thing that baboons stereotypically do, at least how they're like depicted in, cartoons and stuff, where they like slap their butt at someone or something. So I think that's baboon. So that's the message here with the baboons doing all that. So kind of a interesting message, but if someone is like taunting you into something at any time, whether it's now or in the future, I'd really be pretty surprised if it was now while you're watching this, or just like something happens in the future where someone's like taunting you or trying to goad you into anything, even if it's just like a negative. Surprise if it was now while you're watching this, or just like something happens and surprise if it was now while you're watching this, or just like something happens in the future where someone's like taunting you or trying to goad you into anything, even if it's just like a negative, if that makes sense, regarding whatever shows up that this is representing. So if anyone at any point seems like they're trying to start a fight with you or something like that, just it could be on the street, it could be totally random. Don't take the bait. It's just really it's just not worth it. And again, think of it as far as like comments on social media. Think of it in like a workplace. Think of it as like an underhanded like comment or something like that. It just kind of doesn't matter is what I'm getting. They're showing me this comment or something like that. It just kind of doesn't matter is what I'm getting. They're showing me this, you don't like react to it in a way, like you don't like fight them, you don't like align and agree with it, or like react to it in a way where you're like, no, you are that, or something like that. And like it can sometimes turn the tides where like everyone who's kind of watching like turns on that person instead of like agreeing with the jabber, I guess you could say. I'm really paraphrasing a lot, but hopefully you kind of pick up what I'm putting down with all that. And I'm not promising it always is going to happen that way, but I'm really paraphrasing a lot, but hopefully you kind of pick up what I'm putting down with all that. And I'm not promising it always is going to happen that way, but I like it. So I was guided. So I just got it and I like read some of the parts and I'm like, okay, and I put it on the shelf. So, and maybe it was also in part for like, someone else who's going to come along and see it. And I'll be like, hey, I'll read this or something like that. So next thing they'd like to get to here, by the way, showing me an airplane next. It's about travel. They're just saying travel is a good idea. And also just like getting out of, next thing they'd like to get to here, by the way, showing me an airplane next. It's about travel. They're just saying travel is a good idea. And also just like getting out of the home idea. Or if you're thinking about it, maybe consider it, or maybe you'll get an opportunity if you're like, I don't have the money for that. And again, getting outside is like the other half of this message for those of you who don't have anything lined up or you're not. And again, getting outside is like the other half of this message for those of you who don't have anything lined up or you're not feeling the travel thing. Just make sure you're kind of balancing things out like that and getting outside here. So there's one more message and then they might be done. And I say might be because there are many times I go to end a reading and then 20 more messages come in at the last seconds. So what's the last thing they'd like to get to here? So our good friend Tiger Spirit Animal showing up for this reading as well here. But this tiger is purple. Like it was weird. There's like a tiger and then there were grapes and then the tiger was colored purple because of the grapes. It was almost like something out of Microsoft Paint or like a visual editor or something like that, where you take a color and drag and drop it and it like turns the whole shape of color. So what's the message here? The words I'm getting are out of the ordinary, and it's time to be out of the ordinary. It's in some ways for you, it might be time to be weird, even for a weird person, but in a good way. And let me explain it. Even in like this, if you will use the term spiritual community, there are people who don't really fit in, so to speak. If you will use the term spiritual community, there are people who don't really fit in, so to speak. Or just like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure you've had that experience too, which is maybe part of why you're watching right now for this message. Like there was even a period of time where I worked at a metaphysical shop and I was so surprised that like I didn't like dislike everyone there at all either. There were people I really liked, but I was expecting to like really click with everybody. And there were people I clicked with on like hey, we have like a sense of humor level, or hey, we have like a, something else, but it just like didn't click as how I expected it would. And I'm really having trouble getting it out of my mouth. But if I were to try to summarize it a bit better, there's just like nothing wrong with that. And sometimes you're here to be a difference and make a difference, and it's not going to be through being like everyone else. So even if you're like in an unconventional field, or you're just kind of in something that's already kind of different and not mainstream, like it's okay to be different even for that crowd. And the right people are going to gather around you, whether it's friendship wise, or it's you're trying to build a community or a following or anything like that. Because the world needs like unique and people who are not following the crowd. And I've been getting messages like this a fair amount recently for different readings and even on like the different just channeled things I've been doing for different groups that I channel for, like newsletter or membership or things like that. But it's like especially important that you are not getting swayed to just be like everyone else. Like it's very especially important that you don't do that. And it's okay if you, it's like if you're like learning Reiki, like that's okay. Like, yeah, a lot of people have learned Reiki. A lot of people facilitate Reiki. A lot of people work with all that. Like that's okay. You can do things that other people are doing, but when it comes to like how you are, who you choose to be, how you operate, don't just like buy into what everyone else is doing, but sit with like what feels authentic to you is kind of what I'm getting. And you might even have new directions with like something you're starting or building that's like different than anything else that's out there. If it's not resonating for you so much about like spiritual community wise, like if you're building a business that no one's built before or no one around you has built before, or like you have an idea that's like a combination of ideas that no one's tried before, it's like, yeah, do it. Like keep pioneering, because it's so tempting to just go do what everyone else is doing because it seems safe and it seems like it's working, and maybe it is working, maybe it's not, but doesn't mean you can't create something better or that works for you, for example, with all that here. And you might have to go on your unique journey to figure all this out, or you might just know exactly what I'm talking about right now, and it's just helping you to make a good choice for yourself regarding what you're choosing. But anything else with this before we start to close this out? It's just important that you're you, and even if no one gets it, they will eventually. But the only way that's going to happen is if you choose to go down that road, and otherwise you're not totally potentially living authentically. And you could have had this thing where you were living authentically and had the right people around you, but yeah. And that's not like a threat. It's just something to consider as far as like choosing to be authentic or not, is you can create your authentic best life or follow the crowd. And, there's nothing wrong with that either. But go with what feels like best to you regarding all that. They are actually showing me a couple more things. They're showing me a cherry next and like a red tiger. So they're doing kind of a similar thing they did with the monkeys, I guess. But what's with the red tiger here? The other thing that they're kind of mentioning is like, this is not to judge like one thing is better than the other. It's just to get you to choose what's best for you and your particular circumstances and get you to think about it. So you kind of know what that is kind of what they're saying with all that. So they're done. Cherries often like symbolize renewal for me as well, or like a rebirth. And is there anything significant with the cherries with that here? They're also showing it like Pac-Man. In Pac-Man they have all the fruit, like there's the cherries you're supposed to gobble up and whatever, like an apple probably, and other things like that. So again, it's symbolizing rewards, kind of like the fruit earlier in the reading did. And let me just ask them what is going on here. Okay, very simple. As you're being the unique you are getting rewards. Like you'll be getting rewards is the way I'm getting to say it here. It kind of reminds me of how, I feel like I already said it, but I'll say it again just in case, or maybe in a slightly different way. Sometimes there's just like this path that just seems like, whether it's society's story that it works this way, or we just think it will be this way, it seems like what's the best way to say this? The way that is just going to work best for like money, for example. Like the example that comes to me is like going to college and getting like a job, like to get money. And like, 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, probably a great idea. Probably a great idea. Nowadays, it's a little bit more, it could be a really great idea. It could potentially not work out as well as we'd hope, depending on what field you're going into and all that, and just the way the landscape's changing and all that. And like spirit might be like, hey, go this way. And this is not a literal message, just to stress this is an example. Spirit might be like, hey, go start this balloon animal company or something like that, or go start your healing practice or something like that. And you're like, oh, but this way is going to be safe and have money and people won't judge me. And like, they will anyways if you go that way, trust me. But this way is actually going to work out if you go the way you're supposed to go, you could say. And it reminds me of that sort of a thing where it's like, maybe it doesn't seem stable, but it reminds me actually of when I started doing one-on-one readings and doing this work professionally instead of my day job, if you will. It was actually a nighttime job, but that's another story. And it was kind of like, that was one of my thoughts. I was like, well, for this thing, I have a stable paycheck in theory. and it's consistent. And over here, if it's, what if I have a month where people don't book with me as much, or like, what if this, like, is this going to last if I, will I keep getting bookings if I, go over to one-on-one readings? And I actually watched a reading and they said something that spoke to my situation. I was like, okay, I think that makes sense that I go with the readings then. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, seems risky, but it's not. And over here, who's to say this job wasn't about to, like, something weird was going to happen, or, maybe, I don't know. You know what I'm saying. So I'm going to end it there. One more message here. They want to go deeper into the celebration thing. So let me see what they would like to say to clean things up there, or what else is going on there here. I guess they just want to remind you of that message, like, celebrate you. Don't think you don't matter. You do. Your choices matter. And like, you could be someone that, does something that changes the world, is something they're just putting out there to you, in case you need to hear that as encouragement regarding that topic. So they're done with that. So I hope that helped, resonated, do whatever was for your highest good. We'll move to the fire signs in a second. And then, did something happen with the live with, oh no, Abundance Love Joy says frozen silence for me for 10 minutes. Tried everything. Gonna relax and receive the download. Oh no, were there live issues? Okay. Sorry that there were any like issues with chat there, guys. It looks like if you leave and rejoin the live, it makes it better. Just came in and everything's working great. Awesome. It went great, freezy, glitchy for a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry to hear it. Hopefully it will record okay and post on YouTube just fine. Cool. Okay, cool. As long as the issues are over, we'll just move on. And cool. Thanks for letting me know. So we'll move to the fire signs in just a second here. I might hang out with chat for just a second. Hey, Crystal, good to see you. I am doing well. I'm feeling a little bit sleep deprived, perchance, but I'm doing well. And it's interesting because I'm on part. Would it be asking me to talk about it? A part of me is like, oh, I'm not like being as lively as I normally be, or as lively as I should be, or like, it's funny how those self things come in, and you might be watching, like, you might be seeing that, or you might be like, it seems like he's doing fine, but you're still getting lags and glitches. No, how's it get any better than that? Heck yeah, Lauren. Messages resonated. Thank you, Heather. Didn't even notice. Perfect, Sarah. Yeah, see, exactly. It's kind of just like, it's funny how sometimes we are like thinking we're coming off a certain way and we're just fine. One of my things that I've learned is just not overthinking things like that. But that's fine. No lagging over there. Cool. Hey, Destiny. Balloon animals is a big sign, so that was fun. Hey, there you go. How's it get better than that? Balloon animals also reminds me of the scene from Shrek where he makes balloon animals out of like the frog and the snake with Princess Fiona. It just popped into my intuitive visuals or something. It just popped in there after we mentioned balloon animals. So we're going to start the fire signs. Enough Shrek references, or not enough Shrek references. For those who know, you know. That's a joke. That's a weird joke. I'm feeling the weird joke reaction from some of you. It wasn't that bad, though. So if you have fire sign, sun, moon, or rising, this is meant to be for you when you see it. And I would channel my spirit guides, angels, and source for you. Work with my intuition on that just to see what would be for us good, what would help you out, what you need to hear, and let's start here. So speaking of frog, they are starting with a frog, and it is a frog race. It's like a frog racing a toad, and they're adding in a snake or something to this. So this like forest animal like sprint here. So what's up with the frog and toad race here? So you might feel like you're in a race, but you're actually not. And what I'm getting is, what this is saying is, one second. One thing is like to stop racing against other people if you feel like you're doing that. It's kind of like a stop comparing kind of message for at least like half of you. And for the other half of you, you're rushing when you don't need to. And you might find, some of you, that you're in both of those camps where you're like, you're comparing and you're rushing to keep up, but you don't actually need to. So it's kind of saying to run your own race, because in this intuitive visual, there's a secret shortcut that this frog can take that gets it to its own victory. This is going to be a pretty niche example that I'm about to give, but there's this game, and I never actually played this game, but I just saw TikToks of it, and I was like, oh, I used to play a similar game as a kid. Because if you remember the Wii Sports thing that used to be really huge, and like there was the bowling, and then there was the tennis, and like that was really fun. But then there was like a second thing that came out. I think it was called like Wii Sports Resort. I never played that one, but there's this like archery part. And like in the game, there's these targets, and you aim for the direct target in front of you, and you get points based on how close you get to the bullseye. But in every stage, there's also like a secret target. Like there's like a giant watermelon, like way like hundreds of yards off in the distance. You have to do this like crazy like trick shot, and it like arches over and hits it for like a crazy amount of points or something in the game. And it's kind of like that is, that was like a lot to explain that, but it's kind of like that is what they were showing me to kind of explain this, where it's like, you might not think you're winning if you take your own path or take your own time, but you actually are. And you kind of get to this unique space or elevated space that's like different than the results that everyone else got. And like, I hesitate to say this, but the words I hear are, they're jealous of you. And it's like you win in your own way. And it's like you never had to race in the first place. And the reason I hesitate is the last thing I want you to do is be like, oh, if they're jealous of me, I'm going to be scared of that and not do it because I don't want people to dislike me, because then I don't feel safe because of this thing in my childhood or whatever. So what I'd say is like really lean into people being jealous of you. And one of the things that I heard that helps me with people being jealous is like, take that as a sign that you're doing something right, is the one of the best ways to flip that I've found so far. Or just being like, hey, like if you have haters, it means you're doing something right. Like that's great. Go that direction. Ask for more of it, maybe, depending on where you're at with all of it. But I definitely consider doing that. And so like ways it could show up specifically for you, if they want to give more specific examples with this here. It could be like everyone's like really trying to get to a promotion like at work, and everyone's vying for the same promotion. But if you focus on doing your best work possible and be like, okay, like maybe I'll apply to this, but at my right time, like I'll get the right promotion. It's like maybe another position opens up that's like perfect for you. And if everyone knew that was going to be opening up, they would have like been trying to like wait and prepare for that one instead. It's like a weird example that's coming up that might not be exactly how all that works, but you get it. For others of you, it's like you're trying to get like your business to take off, and like you might see like a gold rush over here with like how to get people's attention. Like this is not a literal example, by the way. This is just purely hypothetical example, and I have not done a lot of research on like Threads, for example, the platform. But like, let's say everyone had like a gold rush hypothetically to like Threads or a new platform that doesn't really exist, and everyone's like, oh, we gotta like get to this platform and like get all this attention, and they're like freaking out and like using all the like tips and tricks, and they're not maybe they're not focusing on like the long-term vision of what they're building. And you could be like, yeah, I'll incorporate that, but you're not like in a rush. You're like, what's going to be most impactful and effective, like for my long-term vision? What's going to be for the highest good of the people I'm being of service to with what I'm posting, for example? And it's kind of like you win your own race the way you do it if you don't just like buy into the way everyone else is doing it. So kind of weird examples, but take it all as it resonated and how it applies to your situation. Let's move on to the next thing they'd like to get to here. The other thing they're showing with this race is like above this frog race, there are other frogs with like helium balloons tied to them, or like some of them are in like those parasailing. That might not be the word for it. Whatever those little airplanes are with like the parachutes and like the little fans in the back, like just flying above the race or like floating above it and like raising up. And the message is like there are people who are winning in their own ways who are not participating in the race like at all, like whatsoever, and they're doing like just fine. So just be very mindful of like the trap of comparison and like racing against the clock or against other people. There are times where it's appropriate to race against the clock. There's times where it's just detrimental to your health and well-being and sanity and feeling, not literal, you know what I'm saying, like not literal sanity. You're probably fine either way, but mental health, if you're like constantly in that game, it's like for years, it's probably not healthy. Next thing they like to get to here is the question is, I hesitate to say the thing like, how can you be like someone else ever? But the thing they're saying is like, how can you be more like the people who are not wrapped up in that game so much, but they're winning anyways? I guess you could, if that resonates for you or makes sense to you. Next thing they're showing me is a banana and a banana split here. They're showing the banana sundae kind of being served at like a diner. So what's the message here? It's about sweetness. For you guys, what I'm getting is like almost like a don't miss your chance. And it's not like meant to like give a sense of urgency that you like freak out. But it's like if someone gives you an opportunity, just probably, and it feels good to you, just it feels light to you, please take it, is kind of the way that they're saying it, especially like an opportunity that seems sweet, because this is in some ways the Sunday's representing like sweetness to you. So it's like a sweet opportunity or like an opportunity for sweetness, if that makes sense. That doesn't feel quite the right way to say it, but just take the good opportunities that come your way and you'll know what those are, because it'll be like too good to pass up is what I'm getting. But don't second guess it too much, because it's like the ice cream melts eventually. And it's like, yeah, you can get another sundae or there will be other opportunities, but it's probably better you don't miss out on something like that, whatever that's representing for you, which is interesting. For others of you, there is just more sweetness on the way. That's just something that's coming in, I guess, whether it's through other people or gifts from other people or something like that. And for others yet, it's saying like, be sweet in a way. So I need to sit with this. If you're a sweet person, then keep being a sweet person is what this is saying. It's tempting to let that be stamped out of us sometimes. And I will say it's probably a positive thing to have a backbone and be able to whip out it's going to sound wrong. not wrong, but it's going to sound mine in the gutter a little bit. I was about to say whip out the firmness, which is not something I say in my daily life, but it's might be something I start saying in my daily life now. But firm boundaries, or like that strength, or that fortitude to be able to be like, say no to people. It's not saying like forego that, but it's saying like, don't lose your light, whether it's in times of darkness or people around you are mean. Like, it can take strength, but that sweetness or that light, when, sweetness when is for the highest good, is there for a reason. And it's actually a positive thing. Like, Source potentially put you on this earth for, or to bring to the world. So don't lose that just because other people don't have that or don't seem to display that. And you might be the person who changes the tides by being who and what you are, like being a light, being for the highest good, like sweet, if that makes sense, and kind, authentically kind, and things like that. Like, you might be the ripple effect the universe needs to help turn the tide. So keep that in mind with probably all your good qualities, but for some reason it's showing up as like light and like sweetness in this one, which is weird, but it's not weird. It probably makes perfect sense. So let's move on to the next thing. They're showing me just a wall here with a clock. And there's this like employee at this like restaurant that the sundae was served at. It seems like it could be a different scene here. But they're just kind of bored. They're on their break. There's like a coffee there. And it's kind of time to like spruce up life a little bit. If you're bored, it doesn't mean be negatively chaotic and like ruin your life circumstances necessarily, but it's like, life is supposed to have a certain amount of liveliness to it sometimes. So if you're like bored, what can you do to spruce things up? Like, what can you invite in? What can you manifest? 1 second. I need to solve a puzzle to show that I am not inactive on the live. Okay. And please let me know if it like freezes, because sometimes when that comes up, it like freezes the weird puzzle that they throw on my face. Anyways, I'll just keep channeling on what they were talking about. And if there are any issues, just like let me know in chat. Yeah, life is supposed to have a certain amount of all good. Cool. Good to hear. Cool. Thank you, Marina. Good to see you, by the way. So let me just reset and see what they'd like to get to next here. Some of you just need a bit more excitement, and like, I don't know if it's still winter everywhere for where you guys are watching, but they're like, it doesn't matter if you just like go sledding or if you just book tickets to a concert or do something that excites you or invite friends over, something, you know, buy your favorite drink and have a movie night or something. Just something to break anything like that up if something like that's going on, or if that happens in the future. Because sometimes you just kind of have to do things yourself. We can't always wait for life to happen to us to like excite us. Like we can create the frequencies like we'd like to see sometimes, like excitement or joy or things like that through a combination of manifest. And like, yeah, it can just show up for us. We can't just ask and receive it, but also sometimes it helps if we go out and create it too. So, because it's kind of like on this employee to create their own joy and maybe even create some circumstances for some magic to appear for them that they'd like to see. And the opportunity is like right there. They just have to reach out and grab it essentially, or like see it, reach out and grab it. And you will. So I'm not too worried about it, but anywhere life is boring, there's about to be some spice if you're willing to have it and potentially work with the universe on creating it, depending on where you're at with all that here. There's a bit more with this though. What do you need to call in to make your life more exciting in general? Like, do you need a new career? And I'm not saying jump ship right away, but do you need to start thinking about that and calling that in? Do you need to shift locations? Do you need to invite in community? Like, just if there's something you need to seek out to help you with that, like with the long term as well, like that could be helpful depending on where you're at. That might not be every single one of you, but if that resonates, just consider it. What can you do to change that? So now that we talked about that, there's like sprinkles coming in from like the ceiling or the sky in this like employee's lap and in their hair, and they have a sundae in front of them. So things are shifting. So that's good. Next scene they're kind of moving to here. Let me see where this is going here. This is weird. And they're specifically telling me to say these words, and I was going to not bypass it, but skip it to see where the message went. But they're urging me to say these words as this message unfolds. So I don't think they're going to give it to me any other way. There's this tarot reader I've seen on YouTube, and he's like, is the way it's showing up. This dude is like decorating the ceiling. He's like putting stars up there. He's painting like a rainbow on the wall. It's almost like a kid's room. There's like a wooden old crib in the kid's room. It's really interesting. And what is this? Where is this going here? The message I'm hearing, he's like looking at me and he's like saying like, it's time to prepare for opportunity. And it's like, if you were to, what's the best way to say it here? If you were going to have a kid, you'd probably prepare a room ahead of time. You know, like you have the nursery set up, you have the changing table with the diapers, you have the gifts from hopefully, you know, people who are supporting you to help you out with the baby and all that. And it's like, if there's an opportunity you would like to see, there's a couple different ways I'm going to have to get to this, because this first one I feel a little iffy on, but I'm going to say it. It's like, does it make sense for you to prepare space in a way for an opportunity you'd like to see? So if you would like to have a lover, for example, it's like, is there a way you can prepare your bedroom for having a lover over and like kind of hold space or create space and magic for that? Or if you're looking to create a new job, is there a way you can start to prepare space for that, like updating your resume, updating everything, like actually taking action on it? Or, you know, maybe it's buying a new set of clothes for the type of job you'd like to have, which is a little bit presumptive. So I'm not sure if that's, unless you're intuitively guided to do it, that could be one way to set an intention. And if that's a little bit financially difficult for you, then, you know, no pressure on that. But let me see where else you'd like to go with that, or my spirit guides would like to go with that rather. But the other way they're approaching this message besides that is, I feel like beyond that, there is a space being created for you for new opportunities, like quite magically. And you might feel this space energetically showing up around you in your life like now. For some of you, it might present as like empty, like because they're showing like a vacant sign with like a vacant lot in like a neighborhood. It's like this neighborhood's like full except for this like one vacant lot and like nothing's there. So it could be like there's like an emptiness somewhere in your world or like a void. And it's not bad. It's not like just anything's going to get in. It's like divinely protected, but it's like this is actually a space being carved for opportunity for you and something you'd like to have. So one message is like, don't just fill it right away if you notice that emptiness, or like another way it was showing up is like, don't try to just like eat it away if it's like an emptiness inside you that you feel temporarily, or just like dull it out, or numb it out. Like maybe sit with it a second before you do anything with that. And you can if you want, your life, but it might be more helpful for you if you don't, is what I'm hearing. But if you're willing to kind of hold space and allow it to be empty and like be just kind of, the word I heard is curious about what might fill that space, or you might kind of ask like, okay, what amazing thing might fill that space that the universe is creating this emptiness for? Yeah, that sentence made sense. Sometimes like things just flow out of my mouth. I'm like, did I say that? Did that make a cohesive sentence? But yeah, I need to just trust it. But something great is going to come in to fill that space is pretty much what's being said. So if you feel that emptiness, like don't freak out. Or, sometimes it's kind of like if you're like single and it just feels like that's just void. It's just vacant. You don't usually just rush to fill it with the first person that comes along. You kind of get the right fit as kind of another way you could think about it. Beyond that, all that, there's kind of more here. The other message I'm hearing is like, start creating what you'd like to see. I'm curious. I want to see what they'd like to say to explain that here. So we kind of already started talking about it, but maybe not. It seemed like I had, but let me just let me get this out. If there's something you'd like to have, like how can you start creating the energy of it, or creating space for it, or creating the momentum towards it, I guess is another way you could say it. It sounds like very obvious, but it's like, I think sometimes maybe we do just kind of sit and hope and dream, and we never cultivate the space or momentum towards the dream or hope. Like for example, if I'd like to do music and I don't set up my recording equipment and get the right setup for that for me to record music, it's probably not going to happen if I don't do that. Or if it's like a frequency like joy, it's like sometimes we have to kind of, again, meet the universe halfway and like start to hold space for joy, and with like an activity that, that's scheduled once a week that tends to bring us joy, or that we're doing as an intention to bring joy. And if it doesn't, we can adjust it until we start to build joy up, with that space. Or if you have to start with like gratitude first, and like you have a gratitude journal, and then you get joy from that eventually, there's a lot of different ways you could look at it. I feel like the words are not coming out of my mouth in the ways I'd like them to for this, but hopefully it's making sense and landing for you in the ways it needs to. I guess like it's as simple as like actually just taking action on the things you'd like to see and like beginning to create it, instead of like seeing it as a far off dream that can never happen. And you'd be surprised what you can create once you start moving towards it, and then keep moving towards it, and then don't give up, and trust your intuition on all of it as well as you're kind of moving towards it. So next thing they'd like to get to here, they're showing me like a squishy marshmallow, and it's sticky and gooey. And it has a big like smile on it. So what's up with the marshmallow here? This is going to sound obvious as well, but it's time to move away from things that stick you or things that are like stuck to you, or that you feel maybe you feel stuck to. Like for example, if you have like a show you watch and it like always triggers you, and you always like have like a week where you're like triggered in a negative way by the show, it's like, don't keep watching the show. Time to move away from the show because it keeps sticking you. If you have like a friend you hang out with and they always say something that just really gets under your skin, and you're like, oh, but this is my friend and everyone else likes them, and da da da. but it just like always is rough for you for some reason. It's like, it's okay to budget your time a little bit and set that boundary and not spend as much time with them where you're like dealing with that so much. And for some of you, it's even like mindsets and like beliefs or ideas like that are really being presented to you or thrown in your face now or will be soon or have been recently, where it's like, how can you start to move beyond that and start to rewire things a little in a certain way where you're not stuck by that belief or opinion or fear or whatever it is. And there's definitely like many resources on how to do that, whether it's a modality or it's energy healing or it's a course you take or it's something on YouTube or something somewhere else. As long as it works, that's kind of a big part of what matters probably. But really time to maybe even dig into shifting that, because there are a lot of great things for you. And the universe doesn't want you to be like stuck or like dealing with all this marshmallow fluff and goo and things triggering you. If that resonates for you while you're moving towards or through, or you have these really great things, you know. And for some of you, this is like the only thing holding you back. And that might be a smaller percentage of you, but it's like the only thing that like keeps you from taking action, or the only thing that like keeps you from doing what you'd like to do, is just like whatever this sticking thing is like representing for you. So time to work through it is what I'd say. For things that seem like they more like stick to you, and what does that even mean? If it's like something someone says and you can't get it out of your head, but it's like in a negative way, you know, or it's like you feel stuck in someone else's belief or projection or something like that. It's kind of time to protect your energies, whether that means setting a boundary with someone and not spending time with them, or that means more about how to protect your energies if you feel like you need that as something that's coming through, or just learning more tools to deal with that sort of thing. And like deal with releasing that is something you might consider looking into. Like for example, one thing they're having me talk about as an example is, because I listen to Lee Harris a good amount. I mean, sometimes more than others, but a pretty good amount. Who's another channeler, by the way. And one mantra he'll talk about that his guides gave him is the mantra, I release any energies and emotions that are not mine. So for example, that might be something you incorporate if you're noticing just sticky energies or things, is something like that. Or the other example that I've heard is, another idea you can attempt is, if you listen to Access Consciousness stuff, one of the things they talk about is if something's showing up like a thought, especially like a repetitive thought or something like that, you kind of ask like, okay, is this mine or someone else's? And if it lightens up energetically, or if you, depending on how you work intuitively, you might just get like, yeah, it's not yours. Then you'd be like, okay, they talk about return to sender is what you'd say to it. Or you could switch it up if you want to and maybe say it slightly differently, but that could be a way to start, like maybe that's another way you could try to unstick things, is something like that. So I don't know, there's different things out there. Those are just like two examples, but yeah, so if those resonate as something to try, you could try those out and see what helps. Next thing they like to get to here for you, they're showing this like rushing river and the marshmallows floating down, whisked away. So what I'm getting is you're going to figure that out, whatever that situation is and whatever represented for you. So that's great. Taken care of. You're trying to like forge this river. Forge. You're trying to get across the river. I forgot the Oregon Trail terminology from from third grade momentarily, but you're trying to get across this river and it's a little bit rough. The current's strong. It goes like right over a waterfall, so it's a little bit precarious here. So what's going on here? You know, very simple. If you have to have fortitude, just keep having fortitude. Eventually you get to the other side. And there's that phrase, nothing to it but to do it, is also showing up here. So try not to beat up on yourself if this is happening. Like sometimes you just have to have fortitude and keep persistent on things. And it does get better on the other side, and it's probably teaching you something. But anything difficult right now, anything it feels like you are fighting the currents or just fighting to get through, or or whatever, like you're going to make it is what I'm getting. Just be persistent. So, and you know what, that's better than that's better than any sort of message like, oh, you're about to get swept up and no matter what you do, it's always gonna, something like that. So it is actually a message of encouragement here. So let me see what else they'd like to get to, or if there's anything else with the river they'd like to talk about here. The other thing they're saying is like, if you feel like things are against you, things are not always going to be against you, is the other message they have for you. Things will be flowing with you at a certain time period, and you'll feel like the wind's at your back, so to speak. And you are getting to that time period. If you don't feel like it's now, it's right around the corner. It's just, this could be like the last push. Well, for some of you, it's like the last push. For others of you, just know that it's coming and it will come eventually, is what I'm getting to say here. And for some of you, it could even just be like March, like this month. So that's cool. Next thing here. So now they're giving me a visual where the river is like at your back, and like this is positive now. You're at like it reminds me of whitewater rafting, but you're like going along with this river. It's taking you right where you need to go here. So this is in the future is what they're showing me and telling me. And excuse me, what does it mean? Just gonna sit with it a second longer. Okay, when the flow is in your favor sometime in the future and you feel like the wind's at your back, don't fight that current because you're not used to moving forward. Like really embrace it. And even if it's uncomfortable, if like a lot of things are changing or a lot's happening at once, like just roll with it is pretty much what I'm getting to say. Because sometimes we're like used to being stuck, and then when we're not, we're like really afraid, maybe even, or really freaked out. And there's like no really reason to be. It reminds me of, and I'm not trying to put this on you or say this is exactly how it is, but there was a video that popped up on my feed at one point. It was like a bear that had been let out of captivity. And it was like in a circus or something. And it was used to like pacing around in this cage. And is this totally true? It could be. But what observers noticed was like even years after it, there'd be times where this bear would just keep pacing in circles based on that habit. You know, it was free in the wild of pacing in that cage. And in some ways, it's kind of a message about, at least sometime in the future, like if you've been used to being stuck at all, and kind of breaking that habit of stuckness or embracing a different energy and not letting any comfortability, well, with that habit hold you back, but that's not the best way to say it. What's the best way to say it? Just be aware of that and do your best to move forward when the energy is pushing you forward, I guess is the best way to say it. And now that you've heard it, you'll hopefully be aware of it and be more likely to just embrace the flow and forward movements. So they're showing me like a golden sunrise and sunset, and it's kind of like a time lapse of the sun rising and setting over and over again. But it's in the Arizona desert is what they're telling me and showing me, because there's like cacti here. And the message, interestingly enough, is like, hey, there's always another opportunity. So like the sun might be setting on something in your life in some area, but the sun is also just about to rise like right after. So don't freak out about anything that's ending. Don't freak out about things that are closing down, or, you know, if you have a source of income that closes down, you might have another one that opens right up, is an example. I'm not saying all of you are going to have exactly that happen. And I know I clarify that a lot sometimes, but there have been times where I've facilitated a reading and I didn't specify that something was an example and people took it really literally. And I was like, wait, no, don't do that. But it's okay. It was like, I think the video I posted, it was a long time ago. It was about like writing. The example was like, hey, if you would like to write a book, like then approach it this way. And then someone took it as like, oh, so now I'm supposed to write a book. I'm like, no, wait, no, you're not. It was just an example about like how to approach this thing. So that's okay. I don't need to explain myself overly much, but I don't know. Let's move on to the next thing they'd like to get to here. So beyond that, so we were in the desert here. So if things are, here's a weird message. Sorry, it's a weird sentence. It's not a weird message. If things are drying up for you, they're actually not. So it's kind of like a cycle. It's like things might seem like they're drying up for you in some area, maybe even abundance wise, but it's like the flood of abundance is about to burst forth and like refill that land. So it's like you're not actually losing anything, or it's not actually drying up. It just kind of like, it's kind of like suspenseful a little bit. It's like, oh, is there going to be enough? And then it's just like, yeah, it's fine. Then the dam kind of bursts and like this water floods and it's fine. So again, when there's messages like that, it doesn't mean don't take action towards your abundance. It's still do the action part. It just means like, don't freak out too much. And if you freak out, that's probably okay. I'm not going to judge you for it. And the universe is definitely not going to judge you for it. But this is saying you're going to be okay, essentially, regarding whatever that symbolizes for you. They're done. So I hope that helped, resonated, or whatever is for you guys. Good. We'll move to the earth signs in a second. Move to, there was like a tiger that was showing up for the end of that reading as well. And it's kind of the same message as the collective reading, where it was like a being uniquely you and really owning that, and being as different as you be, even in like niche communities or whatever. And like, that's really going to make the difference. And the universe needs that. Like, it requires that, and it's going to change the world. That sounds big. So let me talk to that really quickly. For some of you, let's not limit it. It could literally be that, like maybe whether it's through the butterfly effect or it's through the ripple effect, or maybe you're just going to have a huge thing. Or it could also be just you setting that example really helps other people change, or as above, so below, the energy of you doing that really impacts things. So multiple ways you could approach that, but it really does change things to be you, like authentically you fully, and embrace that difference. And it sets a really positive example. And you never know whose life you're going to change just by being the example that you be when you do certain things like that. And even if it's not today, it could be 3 years down the road, you build something and you meet the right people where you have that impact, or 5 years, or maybe it will be tomorrow or today, but keep that in mind. So, and sometimes the reason I might be called to mention that in multiple readings is, if this gets reposted on YouTube and there's the timestamps of the other readings, like someone might skip over the collective and go straight to fire, for example. So just, again, not that I needed to explain that, but I'm feeling explainy today, so I'm going to explain things. You're welcome, Heather. You're welcome. Ooh, breathing. I've been changing my sleep schedule around, so I'm not going to change the live time. I'm definitely feeling slightly sleepier. Oh, and there was a time change today, but I'm definitely feeling slightly physically sleepier than I normally do, but that's okay. Thanks, Sarah Seeds. This was perfect. Thanks so much for letting me know, Annie. Oh, Canada. I'm so glad to hear it. You're welcome, Lauren. Explaining is just fine. Thanks, Marina. Appreciate it. I say this multiple lives, but I forget you guys are cool sometimes. And I don't mean that as in like I actually forget you guys are cool, but I think for some, I don't know if it's just like because of past, maybe it's past times in my life where people just get overly just like not cool towards me, or maybe it's just other people in the comments in the past. Maybe I have TikTok live PTSD from the early days or something, where people just get really hateful in the comments. Yeah, I don't know. And sometimes I honestly just get that intuitive, like, yeah, this is showing up to be said, and I'll explain it that way. But we've been doing this live for a while now, for the past few years. So now that we have this more consistent like audience of you guys, or core group that shows up, like, you guys are always really cool. So I just want to say I appreciate you guys. I so get that. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tara. I'm glad you love how I explain things. Your intentions for my lives make my job easy. Glad to hear it, Marina. Glad to hear it. You are cool. No, you guys are awesome. So I just wanted to say I appreciate this crowd, and I appreciate you guys. And it's I really appreciate getting to do this for you guys and show up for a really cool crowd and get to do it. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt. So this one is meant to go on YouTube. And oh, thank you, Heather. Because thanks, Tawny. Oh, thanks, Heather. So a holy human being asks, will this be going on YouTube? The intention is yes, as long as TikTok, because what happens is, I mean, some of you know this, you've gone live before, some of you may not, but TikTok pretty much has a recording of the live and you can download it afterwards. And if there's a technical difficulty, it's kind of just like, oh, well. So if there's not any technical difficulties, then yes, it'll be on YouTube on Wednesday, is Tuesday or Wednesday. But I'm trying to like make a set day, which is like Wednesday. And that gives time for the video to process. And it just works with my schedule. So, hey, Beth, glad to see you here again. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm just going to check, like, do we start Earth? Do I just hang out with chat a little bit longer? I'm going to hang out with y'all a little bit longer, and then we'll start Earth signs. And I'll also do a quick shout out just to the moderators. So Marina's here. I saw Destiny for a second there. So just a big thank you to anyone who helps the chat run smoothly. So thanks to Marina. Thanks to Destiny. Thanks to anyone else who's here I didn't see that's a moderator. Thanks to any of you who just kind of let people know what's going on while I'm busy looking anywhere but the camera to channel the readings for you guys. Yeah, you're welcome. So I just wanted to say thank you. You guys help make this a better experience for everybody. Okay, we're going to start the earth signs now. So if you have an earth sign, sun, moon, or rising, this is going to be for you when you see it. If I can get the sign to stand up. And for you when you see it, and I'm going to be channeling my spirit guides, the angels, and source for you, and working with my intuition and all this, and we will just see what they'd like to bring through to help you out, to bring through what would be for your highest good, to bring through what you need to hear right now at whatever time you're reading this. And they're showing me a creature that doesn't exist. Essentially, there's like this boulder, but then there's like this elephant rhino thing. And it was like charging through this like boulder. And so what's going on here with this guy here? This bad boy. So I feel like I said something like this to you last week. I think this came through recently, where it's like you charging through obstacles, and they're just kind of saying like, keep doing it. There isn't going to be an obstacle that can stop you. The only thing that's going to stop you is if you stop or choose not to do something. And that's an encouraging message, because sometimes we think outside, well, we're going to have to take this within reason, okay? We're going to have to take this with balance and discernment. But sometimes we think outside forces can stop us, whether it's like another person wishing us ill or something like that. And it can't, is pretty much what I'm getting. Or yeah, sometimes the universe forces us to pause and take a break, and we have to take a week off or something like that. But you can always get back on the horse and keep running over obstacles. And that does not mean running over people, by the way, physically, legal disclaimer, but you know what I meant. Metaphorically running over obstacles once that's up. So just keep charging ahead, I guess, is one of the messages. And like you're doing great. So if you feel like you're doing great, you're doing great. If you just need that awareness, you're doing great. Awesome, you're doing great. Whether it's just completely or just in some area. So let's see what else I'd like to bring through for you. They're just showing you as this unstoppable beast, never before seen, about to change the world is something I'm hearing. So maybe some of you will resonate with this. It could also be, depending on like where you're at with this, some of you might be on like a stage where like you can impact the world like that very directly. Others of you could be changing your personal world or the worlds of other people with the impact you're having, or both, you know, it would make sense. So don't limit it. Let it show up how it will. But that's how you're presenting right now. That's how you're being shown to me in this reading. Whether you feel like you're doing well or not, sure, maybe you have wounds going on and you're like, yeah, I don't feel unstoppable. I feel like I stop every couple days to lick my wounds or whatever, or to whatever. And that's okay. Just keep going is what I'm getting. Do what you have to do, but keep going. Next thing they'd like to get to here. So this, don't freak out and assume what this means before I get to the message. Because they're showing this unstoppable beast, like going off of a cliff is the next thing that they're showing. He busts through like a mountain or a wall or something. He goes off a cliff here. He's totally fine. The message is for you to just pay attention to the signs, honestly, while you're being unstoppable, because there are directions you're meant to go, and there is potentially some or a lot of redirection for you coming in here, even if it's just in like one project and you're going a direction with one project and the universe is like, surprise, we actually would like you to launch it in a completely different way. And you kind of have to go this completely different way, which is fine. But if you're not paying attention at all, you might miss it and kind of bust through the wrong obstacles is the way they're showing it to me. And it's not the end of the world. You can pick up the pieces and just kind of change direction and pivot. But the thing they showed was this, like, the unstoppable beast, like, went through this wall, went off this cliff, and it was kind of like a weird commercial voice where it's like, this could have been avoided if you just followed the signs or something like that. And that was a terrible commercial voice imitation, but you get me. Hopefully you get me on that one. So what else? I want to see if there's anything deeper they'd like to say about that as well here. You'll know what this is about. Like, you'll catch this. It's just like, one of the questions is like, are you going to trust yourself with following the signs, with following your intuition and your gut? I feel like you will. I'm getting you well. Hopefully this message helps with that as well. But just kind of keep that in mind for this time period. Like, there is a lot directing you if you're paying attention. So just pay attention while you're being unstoppable and cool and all that here. Because the right direction will prevent you from going off of a cliff here. The thing is, like, you still get there potentially if you quote unquote mess up, but it'll just be easier potentially if you don't. So excuse me, not the end of the world here. I'm also getting you're not going to go off the cliff. So cool. I'm not going to worry about it then. Next thing they'd like to get to here, they are showing this like mammoth. So it's kind of similar, but slightly different here. He's like scaling this rock wall. Excuse me. It looks more like a video game. You know how sometimes older video games would have, well, some of you might not, and that's okay too, but they'd have like a texture they just put on like a wall. So it kind of like, there's not like a natural look to it. It's more just like a sheer wall with like a rock texture on it. It just looked more like that. So let me see what's like up with this here. Kind of similar to what we were saying or getting with like the, or what I was getting. Oh my gosh. What was coming through earlier with the keep charging, it's like a keep climbing message. And it reminds me of the message that came through in the fire signs reading about going across the river, forging across the river, where it's like, if you're like on a climb or if there's something like difficult here and there, like just keep going. It's like you're almost there. You're so close you can almost taste it is what I'm getting regarding something, whether it's a project completing or maybe it's a relationship for some of you, or it's healing something, or it's accomplishing something, or maybe you don't even realize you're close to it, but you're just so close to something, and just don't give up. They would like me to give the metaphor. I'm not sure if it's the perfect metaphor, but it reminds me of the memes I've heard, like, yeah, the meme where there's the dude digging for diamonds and he's like about to give up right before he hits the diamonds. And then there's the other person who's like keeps digging and gets to the diamonds or whatever. And it's not really that life or death or anything like that, but you'd probably much rather get to the top of whatever this is. So just keep climbing, keep going. It's kind of what I'm getting regarding all this here. Regarding something like that's a bit more difficult, or it's requiring fortitude in some way. I feel like you're going to make it here. Even if I would not backtrack if I were you, but even if you do backtrack, I feel like you're going to turn around and get to the top. If you're like about to give up or something, like don't give up is what they're saying here. For some of you, this is like a business or building something you're trying to build. So it's like you're about to reach an important level with this here. And sometimes, not always, I hesitate to like put it on that, but I'll say like the way it's coming through is like sometimes there is like resistance that comes when we're about to like break through or hit another level, depending on what it is, and the circumstances and all that. Because sometimes we just level up and like maybe we take a course for a level up and we just level up. We're like, okay, great. That was effortless. It just happened. But when we're about to like break through something as far as like an accomplishment or like success, like sometimes there's like resistance before we get there. So I would fight through that resistance or persist through it. Next thing they'd like to get to here. So now the mammoth is like at the top and now he's kind of ascending this pathway up to this end goal or target. He's trying to get to, but he hesitates right before. It doesn't matter what gender you are, by the way. It's just a he mammoth, I guess. One of those. But right before he gets to like this end target, he like hesitates and he starts like looking everywhere else as far as like what he should be doing, which is very nonsensical, but it's kind of saying don't get turned around right now. Like you're really close to something probably that you've been working towards or aiming for, and just reach out and grab it because it's right there. He literally just has to like reach out his trunk and he's there. He just has to take a step forward and he's there. And again, sometimes it's like I've noticed this for myself, and maybe this will be helpful to get the example out, where it's like I might be working to build something and it's like right before something big is about to happen or right when I should really double down and focus on like getting this thing done, I'll start like, it's almost like I'll like just turn around metaphorically and just be looking at like, I don't know, like what's the best way to get this example out? Like if I'm trying to build a part of my business and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, maybe I should just like take this course with this modality and just go this entirely different direction and be like this over here. It's just like, I'm like right there or maybe I'm not right. It seems like I'm right there. I'm just like turning over here while I'm like, just need to keep going. It reminds me of that. Is maybe a way I could like explain it, which is the exact same thing I explained earlier, but whatever. Maybe it hit different. Next thing they like to get to here, they're showing me soup and like, or like a porridge is there. And then all of a sudden it's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears up in here. So what's up with this message here? With all that here. So the universe is trying to make things just right for you is the message I'm getting almost in like every area. And you deserve this, you deserve to be in a way that's for the highest good and healthy, like comfy, and like things are sitting right for you is what I'm getting. And don't fight it too much when the universe brings something into your world to be examined or brings something up to be released maybe even, or bring something new that's supposed to be an inclusion to your world or maybe even your path and your targets as like an addition, to what you're doing. Because some of this is, I'm just going to say it. Some of you might get really attached to something you're doing. And it's like, yes, you're supposed to be doing it. But there could also be more, for example, that comes in to balance things out or that is part of your life. And like one of the examples showing up is like work-life balance, perhaps, where it's like you're like really attached to your work and the universe is like, hey, here's a hobby that you enjoy. And you're like, we got to focus on this. It's like, yeah, that's probably healthy, but also, if you balance it out with this hobby, maybe that brings you joy and brings you new ideas and you meet this person over here and you have new friendship and that connects you in the network with this person. And all of a sudden that's helping you out over here and all this magical stuff is happening. So you might be resisting something the universe is trying to bring in. And if it feels right to you intuitively, I would welcome it in because it's like making things just right, or it's like balancing things out in a healthy way for you that makes things greater for you. Or just bringing you in the right direction, if that makes any sense. Here's an inclusion to your world. The other thing with this Goldilocks and the Three Bears deal that's going on, no one's going to steal what's for you is the other message that's coming through. You might be afraid of that, and you don't need to be. Like the universe will divinely protect it, and you really can't mess it up. I still wouldn't try to mess it up, by the way, but that's what I'm hearing is you can't really mess it up. Keep doing your best. The other thing that's popping in that seems unrelated, that might not be as I go to say it, is I was revisiting this like course I went through. I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was Upshift Your Abundance by Lee Harris. I really like that course. But one of the things he talked about in that, I forgot what they showed me. One second. I need to re-get what they showed me from that course that they reminded me of. Oh, yeah. There's this part where you kind of go and be like, okay, what if everything that happened in the past was perfect? Or if you think of like in the future with everything that's happening right now, it's like, what if for the way that my future me needed things to be, everything I was going through right now was perfect and everything I went through in the past was perfect? And like, what might be some of the reasons that would be? And I kind of forget what we were talking about. So sorry about that. Let me see what they'd like me to say about it all as we kind of tie it together. I don't know. What I'm hearing is like something like that consideration or exercise could be helpful for you. Even just about things that are going on right now, even just like to help you let go is something I'm getting. For some reason, my mind kind of went blank, which means I just probably need to move on to a different topic. But let me see where they like to go next here for the reading. They're showing me grapes next on like a grapevine, but it's kind of cartoony. They're showing me crab apples. There's a pig on the ground. There's like a Charlotte's Web kind of thing going on because there's like a spider and a web. Then there's a lot of different visuals. So bear with me as I'm going through this. There's a ladybug showing up here. So tying it all together here. Speaking of the past, like it might be a good time to kind of let go of the past a little bit. You do have a bright future is what I'm getting. And because usually when like grapes show up, it's about rewards. For me, that's one of the things it symbolizes. Like things like fruit can sometimes symbolize rewards too, but grapes usually, traditionally, for me, and when I've been facilitating readings, has symbolized rewards. It could be time to like let go of old friends, with like the Charlotte's Web thing is kind of what that was a little bit more morbid. I can't remember the exact plot of Charlotte's Web, but doesn't someone die at the end? Anyways, you might have to let go of some old friends. I'm not saying they're literally physically gonna unalive or anything like that, but it could just be something from the past you're holding on to, or just time to move away from some people or things, or you already knew it or you already have, but it's time to like finalize it is something I'm getting. But there could be rewards for that is something I'm getting as well. Because when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing or the right thing for you or the thing you're divinely guided to do, Spirit's not gonna like punish you for that. And is it possible that sometimes certain people are divinely guided to do things that aren't fun for them? Potentially, in the past, like the example that if you follow my work, you've heard me give a bajillion times, is like there have been times where I was divinely guided to, well, in a sense, to like keep working like nights at a night job. And I didn't like working nights. It wasn't fun, really, but it led to something really great on the other side, is something I'd say as well. So it's like, yeah, we do have to maybe have some allowance for some of that, but it's going to lead to a great thing, when you're doing what you're divinely guided to do, even if it's like moving away from something or letting go of something we don't desire to, like a friendship or something like that. And that's okay. If you need to take time to mourn, that's okay. But with the crab apple, what they're showing me is like it's bitter, I think. Actually, I've never eaten a crab apple, but I remember hearing they're not supposed to be eaten by humans. So maybe they're not bitter. But in this example, it's bitter. And sometimes it's bitter to let go of certain things, but it's necessary is kind of what they're saying. And there was something else I was kind of getting in like a flash where it was like, maybe this person's bitter or maybe the situation's bitter and it's better that you don't eat that crab apple, but instead move towards the grapes that are for you is kind of what they're saying. Next thing we're moving to, so it's funny because we talked about grapes being rewards, and that was something that started way in like 2001 when I was back in the day when I was like doing readings on TikTok and things like that. And another thing that they would do back then, that it's not that I can't do it or don't do it. or have, but it's just like, it's not what they've incorporated in readings as much recently, is point my eyes at things and then be like, oh, that's like a sign, and there's a message with that. And so they're pointing my eyes at this labradorite that I have on my desk right now, is kind of what they're showing me. So one of the things that labradorite symbolizes are magic, and they're showing me the word magic. They're giving me the word synchronicity as well. I don't associate labradorite with synchronicity personally. I don't know if many people do, but it's showing up here. It can also symbolize other things like divine protection. It can be grounding, if I remember correctly, and it can also have to do with some other things, but intuition as well is one of the other things it can help with. And there's probably way more if you look it up, but what's the message with the labradorite for you guys here? For some of you, it's like a needed crystal. Like, I'd have that on your person. And sometimes we forget we have these. Some of you are like, yeah, I never forget. I've got like 20 crystals in my purse at all times. But sometimes we forget we have these tools we can like carry around with us or work with in the crystals that can really help us out. And that's one that would like to help you out right now. It's like regarding magic, and your magic is something, and potentially regarding, this gets into a topic I don't want to get into, but for some of you, it could be about psychic protection as well. I'm kind of more, what would be good for me to say here? I kind of am on that fence where that's not the right way to say it. You know how there are like topics out there, like people talk about things like psychic attack. And then there's other people who talk about like, psychic attack really can't get to you if you don't believe in it. I tend to be more in that camp where it's like, how much power do we really want to give these things to harm us or influence us? If you think of people who have bigger audiences, especially even like spiritual teachers or people who work with consciousness or things like that, they seem totally fine. And they have like hundreds of thousands or more like people following them and their work. And you'd think they'd probably get quote unquote psychic attacked up the wazoo, but they don't seem to have any big issues. So what stance can you take where those things can't harm you anymore? If that's how it would work for you, is something I'd put out your way as an idea. But for some reason, labradorite could be helping you with something either along those lines, or if you're someone who does deal with that and you, for better or worse, it just seems to be something like maybe it's supposed to help you with that. Weirdly enough, if I were to bring through just what I'm getting right now, my guys are like, it's not a thing. Straight up, like you don't have to live in that reality, and it's kind of a myth. Are there weird things people can do? Sort of, but we don't have to buy into it and make it a thing and make it something we're afraid of all the time or something like that. So, and I know some of you might be a little bit, what's the best way to say it? Maybe like two of you, I just ruffled your feathers or shattered your reality, and that's fine. For others, you're just like nodding along. But let me see what else I'd like to say. Just consider working with labradorite right now, but it's like also about healing your magic and bringing that online more, no matter how magical you already are. So consider working with that crystal. I guess we're actually done with that reading. The other thing that's showing up here, let me see what this even means here. I feel like every reading so far has had a message similar, but this one's about embracing your weird and like not being afraid to let that shine, because like the other weirdos will know where to find you if you are the lighthouse of weirdness, I guess you could say. So, oh my gosh, I don't care what it's about or regarding. If it's like anime or something and your username is anime freak, I can't use the numbers I was about to use, but something, I don't know, whatever, and you're trying to find your anime tribe or something who are also spiritual or something like that, like embrace it, just enjoy it, enjoy that side of you. Like you're here to be multidimensional, but hiding your like weird sides away is actually not doing you any favors. And like, sure, we don't show up to our job interview and I can't make that joke, but we don't show up into a job interview in our like anime hoodie, probably, unless it's relevant to the job somehow. But you know, there's times and places to really unleash the full aspect of that, but you also don't need to like hide it away per se either and not let anyone see it at any time. So take that message with balance, but it's kind of a time to let your weirdness show and be okay with it and not be ashamed of it. And trust is going to bring good things. And if people aren't like vibing with it, then they are not your people, as people say. But let's move to the air signs in a second. The lighthouse of weirdness. Yes. Someone light the lighthouse of weirdness. The beacon of weirdness. I don't know, it reminds me of things as well, like even if you're trying to attract a romantic partner, where if you're kind of embracing your authentic self, you can really attract in someone who's really on board with that, as opposed to if you're hiding it away and then you date someone and then you gosh, it's going to sound like a euphemism, but it's not, but you whip it out a couple months in and they're like, yeah, and they like run away. Or maybe they're cool with it, maybe they're not, maybe they run away. But if you're kind of upfront about it at a certain phase, earlier on, like with dating, it probably is going to work out. And sometimes like, again, like that lighting the beacon of weirdness, the lighthouse of weirdness, is what attracts in that person, you could say too. Like, I guess, should I say that? I'll say it. It's much easier to attract in someone who is like into spirituality or is into like what I do by just like posting on TikTok, and like, whether people would like reach out or like it would just be easier to connect with people like on the same or similar wavelength. Finding it in the wild's a bit interesting. It definitely happens, but kind of what I'm saying. Or it also reminds me of because this popped in as something to mention as well. But I was listening to. I get embarrassed sometimes of how much I like reference this, but I just gonna have to own it because it's showing up to be said. But Lee Harris was talking about like dating apps, and he'd say like he's a channeler on like the bio on the dating app because he's like, let's just get that out of the way. Like it's such a big part of my life. It's kind of like that as well. Not that you need me to say this, all of you, but some of you, maybe it's helpful to get that reassurance or that help you get your head on straight regarding all that. Because I know sometimes we all have our weird things where we hide things away and all that. You did not miss water, Angie. Oof, gonna like stretch my body a little bit because I've been sitting in my chair in this position for a while. Sometimes I like do little beats on the table and dance to them, but I don't know if you hear the beats, so you might just see me dancing, and that's fine. I'm gonna start air in just a second. I'm gonna drink some more water first. Okay, I actually need more. Now we're going to start. So if you have an air sign, Sun, Moon, Rising, this is going to be a channeled reading and intuitive reading for you when you see it. And I'm going to channel my spirit guides, the angels, and source to bring through what you need to hear, what would be for your highest good, what would help you out. So let's start here. I feel like this has shown up for you a couple weeks ago or sometime recently where they're showing me finish lines. And like finish lines have been a theme recently for whatever reason. So let's see what's up with the finish lines here. I do get that you're crossing finish lines. It could also be like crossing things off a bucket list is something they're showing me as well. And I would start doing that if you aren't. If you have a bucket list or you resonate with that idea of doing that. Like start crossing things off now. And it's not a message that you're going to like unalive anytime soon. And maybe sometimes certain ones of us never know when we're going to leave the planet, but that's definitely not be like, oh, hurry and cross this off or else. It's more just like living life now, and not like waiting for no reason. Like what can you do now? But anyways, there are certain things that are finishing in your life or you're finishing certain things and you might even feel exhausted right now. And that's okay. Like rest if you need time to rest is kind of what they're saying with all that. But there are also going to be other races starting soon that come after this one finishes. And let me see what this means here. It might seem like a loop in some ways, but it's not. It's kind of like, you might feel like you're running in circles or in a cycle, but you're actually building upwards. So it's like if you built like a cylindrical tower and you're laying the bricks, it's like, yeah, you're laying the bricks in a circle over and over again, but you're building something taller. It's not actually doing the same thing over and over again, regardless of what it seems. So keep that in mind with if you feel like you finish a race and then you start a race and it feels like the same thing, or you're just doing the same thing over and over again. I don't feel like you actually are, which is cool. It's like there's progress. For others of you, if you feel like you're running the wrong race, I don't feel like this is going to be all of you, but some of you might be like, feel like you're running the wrong race. It might be time to, like, once you cross this finish line, like hop off of that race and find a race you'd really like to race. Whatever that is, whether that's a relationship or that's a job, or just something completely different. Life is too short to not run a race you'd like to race. And I know there's nuance and caveats to that and other things as well. But if you think of like what you can do and what you can choose right now, or in the future as things open up, as your choices compound, like what you might be able to choose in the future or create. Excuse me. It's not worth staying in something that's not working for you. It's really not. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Sometimes it's you're releasing, I'm releasing. Like I'll burp, as you're releasing, or, if any of you are like releasing based on like the transmission or anything like that. Or you've like a realization and then you release or something like that. But anyways, or sometimes I'm releasing, but that's not what this is this time. We were talking about not running races that are not for you, essentially, or that you don't want to race. Like just a reminder, life's too short for that. And like, yeah, sometimes we have kids and maybe you love your kids, but there are challenges with that. You probably can't just, always like, and maybe there's ways around it, but you can't always just like bail on certain things, or you can't just like quit your job right away sometimes, depending on your circumstances, and have it like be like something that is fun and healthy for you. But you can look into starting to create the race you'd actually like to race. You can look into like changing things. So you just feel like you're doing something you'd like to do, at least in some area of your life, and sometimes that's easy to create right away. Sometimes it's not, but it's worth looking into at least anyways. So if there's a cycle you can break and walk away from, that's a race you'd rather not run. That wasn't the way to phrase it. See, I didn't drink enough water. Thank you for bearing with me. You kind of get it at this point, though. So let's move on to what they'd like to get to next here. It's just kind of time to break the cycle of races you don't want to run, if that's you. They are showing me a merry-go-round, a carousel or a merry-go-round next. Jeez. And they're showing someone asleep on this carousel while it just goes round and round. And like they hate it is like kind of the weird thing. But it's like they can just step off of it at any time. And they're kind of just, again, kind of a similar message. Like, don't let that be you where you're the person who is like asleep on the carousel. But if you wake up, you can just step off of it, because sometimes people just kind of check out or zone out and like they really could change things, but they don't see how because they aren't even trying. They're just kind of checked out. So try to get present and just make sure you're choosing what you'd like to choose. Because like staying on the merry-go-round is a choice. Like you're choosing that, even if you're half asleep on it and checked out and you don't realize you have a choice to get off of the merry-go-round, or that you're making a choice by staying on the merry-go-round, Okay, you got the message. So next thing here is they're switching this up. There's a merry-go-round with like rocket boosters underneath it, and it's like flying through space, like Doctor Who style or something. And weird message. I feel like we're still kind of on the same vein of what we were talking about earlier, where I'm going to ask them to explain it more. I'm also going to like sneeze in a second, so I apologize. But it's like this carousel is like going somewhere, kind of regardless of what you do. So the message I heard was like, make sure you're on the carousel you'd like to be on that like rockets off in a certain direction. So for example, if something's like a grind, like you might have a choice where it's like a lot of work either way. Like you might as well choose the one that's a lot of work that's in the direction you'd like to go and be on that carousel that's going round and round instead of being on the one that's like not going the direction you'd like to go. Hope that makes sense to you. Like that sounds to me like a job situation, but it could be something else. Like it could be like if you think of like relationships and like living with someone, sometimes there is like a certain amount of repetition that forms with like the chores around the house or like the maybe some of the habits that form. And yes, you can like consciously shake that up in a healthy way just to kind of keep things alive and keep things, from getting stagnant or boring or whatever, if that is something that matters to you. And there's things you can do, but if you have to grind at something, make sure you're grinding in a direction you'd like to go. So switching it up here, let's see. The carousels also represent, again, cycles. And it's kind of saying like, make sure you're in the cycle you'd like to be on by breaking the ones you don't want to be on. I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, and maybe it's hitting in different ways for you where I'm not, but that's just something that they would like to get your way very, very strongly, I guess, today, if you need to hear it. So next thing here, they are showing me grapes. And what's up? Usually, again, let me see what they like to say with grapes here. It's kind of like the universe has been, what's the best way to say it? It's not like breadcrumbing per se, but it's like drip feeding rewards that you would like in your life. And it almost like seems like it's not enough. Like even if it's like a manifestation, it's always like slightly less than you'd like, or it's a manifestation and it's like you get part of it, but then like you have to wait a long time to get another part or like something like that. Or it's just like slow to build what you'd like to have for some of you, not all of you, hopefully, but this could just be in like one area too. Because they're showing it as like these grapes, individual grapes from like a grape bunch, like being placed almost like a breadcrumb style on the path, and you have to like keep walking and get like a grape, and you keep getting a grape and you keep getting a grape. And there does come a point where you have all the grapes is the message. So don't stop just because you're not getting everything you'd like right away in a certain circumstance. If you are still kind of getting something and it is building, because you eventually get all the grapes is kind of what they're saying. Like as far as like rewards you're getting or manifestations coming in, or if you're trying to build something and it's slow, for others of you here, some of you might like really want instant results with something or really desire instant results with something. And sometimes it just doesn't work like that, especially for like really big dreams. And if you're throwing it, I know not all of you are doing this, but if some of you are throwing a tantrum about that, like that's okay. You're more than welcome to throw a tantrum or get upset or whatever. But it also like doesn't change it. So it's kind of a call for patience with your big goals and dreams and things you desire that aren't coming in right away, because it probably will come in a bit faster if you are patient. You'll also probably have a leveler head and not be like rushing to finish things. And you'll probably have maybe even a higher quality with certain things you're doing regarding that. And let me see what else I'd like to say here. It's just going to lead to better results, honestly. And I think you'll just be having a better time, if you're patient with it and just kind of like letting things take the time that they're going to take. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it. And that's not to limit it at all. Like I know we can have instant manifestations and we can have big things happen overnight. At least for right now, the way things work, sometimes it seems like they just don't. And sure, we can manifest, hey, what will it take to change that? How does it get any better than that? What will it take for things to show up faster? We can ask that question. We can put that out there. We can do that work. But for now, just keep that whole thing in mind. So the other thing with grapes here, there's like a gorilla or a dude in a gorilla suit, like holding this bunch of grapes, and he's like taunting you with it. So what's up with this here? Like sometimes, like if we see someone else getting their rewards before us, it's really upsetting, and it's like tempting to give up or get really mad at like the universe or something like that. And if you're noticing that, like, don't do that to the best of your ability. If it comes up, like, that's okay. You don't have to judge it. You can let it run through your system and be like, okay, interesting. I'm noticing I'm really upset about this. But what is coming through is like that person getting their rewards or manifestations or whatever doesn't mean you won't get yours. It was just time for them, and your time will be either soon or at the right time for you, So try not to throw a tantrum, try not to compare, and because in some ways it's apples to oranges is what I'm getting, and really trust the right thing will come in at the right time is what I'm getting for you regarding that here. The other thing with this man in the gorilla suit here is he's meant for something like completely different than you, like long term. So what's the best way to say this? Like, he might be built for a different path and he needs that right now. Or he might be like going in a completely different direction and he wants something completely different, than what he has. Maybe kind of like you in a weird, ironic kind of way. So try not to like judge and wish you were them, because they probably like don't actually totally have. I mean, some people might, like, because I don't want to limit it and say like, oh, no one has anything great. Never wish, in that way, because it's like, what if it's possible for you to have it all? But they might not actually have what you think they have with that, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Or you might not actually desire their experience like you think you do when you're looking at that. I'm not getting across the point they'd really like me to get across, so let me recheck in on this. It's the other thing is like that thing just might not be what you think it is that they get, is kind of what they're trying to say with all that. So try not to judge and compare with all that. Next thing here, just another, again, if you're building something and you feel called to keep going with it, keep going with it. Next thing showing up is like this red tarantula. It's like painted red. It's fascinating. So what's up with the red tarantula here? It's showing up as a poisonous thing, or a venomous rather thing is the correct terminology. And it's like crawling up your hand. This is not saying you're in danger, by the way. Just bear with me as I bring this through here. So this is kind of saying like, are there people you are embracing in your life that maybe you shouldn't? Like, maybe they're really negative people, or they really like speak ill about other people in a really gossipy way. And maybe they have like something you'd like to have. So like, oh, they have this successful business and they could teach me, or something like that. Or is it like they have qualities you would like, so you're kind of looking past it? And it's kind of saying like to look at the red flags, even if there are other things that are really good or green or that you're trying to get out of the situation, and like really ask, like, is it actually worth it? Like, really worth it? And it's going to be very blatant, if you look at it. It's not going to be like a surprise red flag out of someone, is something I'm getting, just to help you kind of discern what this might be for you. The sign I'm getting for you to kind of just explain it is someone who really talks a lot of shit, like like a lot, or they really seem to wish ill on people or something. And it's like, it's easy to laugh it off, but they're actually kind of serious, and it's actually maybe kind of a problem, or not something you'd like to have around you, because they could just as easily turn that towards you. So just like make sure you're welcoming in people you'd actually like to welcome in to your life, is kind of what I'm getting to say with that, with the tarantula and all of that. Because it's like you have a choice to brush it off or to just let it sit on your shoulder, and you probably don't want the venomous tarantula hanging out on your shoulder. And like, you might be fine, but probably not ideal at the same time. And a lot of people might not desire to hang out around you if you have a red tarantula on your shoulder, metaphorically speaking, if you're with someone like that. So just, and maybe they still will, depending on the situation and all that. That's not like a hard and fast rule, but just keep that in mind. Like, what are you repelling by bringing in something that's not quite right and holding it close to you? Kind of like we just talked about in some of the previous like readings and conversations about like shining your weird light. That sounded wrong, but being like unveiling like and unleashing your full weirdness to attract in like your weird crowd. This would be kind of the opposite, where you're kind of holding something that is like not really you or for you, and it's repelling maybe some of the things or people that would be the green flag while you have it with you. Not to say like you're screwed forever if you do that or mess up or come back like 6 months later and realize, oh, I did the thing. It's like, okay, cool. Now you have that awareness. You can shift it. Like there's always, you're not screwed, you know, is what I'm trying to like make you not be afraid, I guess, with what I'm saying. Next thing, there's a blue tarantula. This one is actually non-venomous and friendly. He's crawling up the other arm of what is representing you here. And it's funny because it's also showing up as like a, you know how in cartoons there'd be like the angel and the quote unquote devil representing a person's like conscious in the choices they're making in their life. Now, if you're divinely guided, it's always going to be the angel, right? But let me see what this is getting to here. So you might have people coming into your life that are conversely, in addition to this, really good people. And what this is saying is like really pay attention to that and not like cling to it and like get overly attached, but hold that close, you know, and really like invite that in. And like when you notice that, like those are probably going to be your people. So you kind of have a choice between the red pill or blue pill. No, sorry, red tarantula or blue tarantula, except in this time, the blue tarantula is the one you want to choose. That's like the truth and good and stuff like that. Take that, red pill people. I'm just kidding. That was like more of like a joke about the red pill like men's dating group more than like the Matrix movies. I realized I didn't clarify that, so that probably didn't make sense. But anyways, you choose the blue tarantula. That's going to lead you to probably a lot of abundance and good things, even if it's not who you expect or what you expect, if that makes sense. So the other thing is like the last thing I want to do, or something I'd like to be free from doing, is setting you up for freaking out about everyone entering your life or everyone in your life right now or the different circumstances in your life right now and be like, oh, is it red or is it blue? It's like, really just like pay attention and just hold it loosely. Be like, okay, interesting, that came through, and just see what comes to you over the coming like weeks. If something didn't come to you right away intuitively, and see like what unveils itself as like a sign for you regarding certain people or things. And just pay attention to how people are and how it links up with the reading and kind of trust your intuition from there, going from there. Probably best to hold it loosely and not like freak out right away about the message and like a knee-jerk reaction. Just so you know. Next thing here, there's like a daddy long leg spider, which are typically harmless to humans, but what's up here? I don't know why this is coming through if you need to hear it, but the message you are an innocent person is coming through for you. There might be certain things that you blame yourself for that are not your fault in like past relationships or certain circumstances. And I'd really dig into that and ask yourself why and what you can potentially do to change that. And I think there is a very healthy aspect to taking accountability for things. I think it becomes unhealthy, and this is actually different than taking accountability. I think it can be unhealthy if you're like really blaming yourself and like really beating up on yourself a lot and judging yourself and keeping yourself from things because you think you don't deserve it or don't feel like you're worthy of it because of this like blame or whatever it is, or guilt or whatever. So try to dig into that if that's resonating for you at all about anything where like you're blaming for yourself for things that really were out of your hands or you were actually really innocent in the situation. And sure, there might be lessons you learn in a situation for what you could have done differently next time, or maybe not, depending on your circumstance, but just be a little bit gentle on yourself regarding all of that here. It's like there's something you're innocent regarding, or you're just entirely innocent in certain areas, and you really don't think so. So interesting. Time to heal that though. It's regarding the past too, is something I'm getting to say on that here. Next thing they're showing me is kale. They're showing me the word vegan. They're showing a farmer farming kale and all that here. And it's kind of time to do what works for you, not just the commonly held belief of the right thing to do, if that makes sense. And an example for this would be, I feel like I've given a lot of examples of something similar to this, but diet, like there's a lot. Think about this. You remember how like 20-ish years ago and like before that, the food pyramid and the recommended diet was like eat a bunch of bread and then eat a bunch of like something else and eat a bunch of that. And then like you kind of get to a certain place where like everything's saying to do the opposite, like entirely do the opposite with how you're approaching things, where it's like, no, like eat a lot of fats, like healthy fats, and eat a lot of greens and vegetables, and depending on your diet, eat a lot of meat, probably grass-fed, or if it's red meat or organic and things like that. And like, that's actually a potentially better, healthier diet. So it's kind of like, yeah, in some ways, like if there's a commonly held quote unquote standard for like what the healthy way is, it's sometimes kind of like, who's to say? Like there's so much stuff where like research comes out about something and everyone's like, oh my God, the research, but it's like, they didn't really look at the research or what it was actually saying, or it's just like, it wasn't the total truth of the situation. And they go like so headlong into it. And then it's just not even true. And like, if they were following their intuition and doing what was right for them, it would have been working out a lot better for them. So it's kind of saying like, there's a lot of information and ideas out there, and there's a lot of commonly held beliefs on like what's healthy, what isn't. And some of it is great, and some of it is actually a weird judgment and projection that doesn't belong there. And your job, I guess, right now is to ask like what's actually right for you, regardless of what society says, regardless of what conventional wisdom says, regardless of what outdated research might say. And this could apply to any area. Once again, like it could be relationships. And yeah, I have a tame example, but I'm not sure if it fits, but I don't know. I guess the more like out there example might be like, maybe monogamy is not for you. Maybe you are someone with your sexual orientation and the way you operate that a gigantic polycule would be perfect. And that's up to you to discern and figure out, So it's kind of like not listening to the judgments of like, oh, monogamy is the only way, or, oh, XYZ is the only way. And if you do it otherwise, then you're wrong. And something's wrong with you or your relationship or your life or something. So keep that in mind right now, just with maybe even everything. I think trusting your intuition, all that, depending on where you're at with your intuition, is the best way to go with pretty much anything. Even if it's for surprising reasons. I'm kind of going on a tangent, but we're gonna come back and go to where they'd like to go. So coming back to the tractor as well. What's up with the tractor now? I'm getting a message that your outdated belief, if you have an outdated belief system, it's being updated, or you might be like in the middle of a shift like that and it's uncomfortable. Just keep going with it. But I'm getting the universe is trying to update certain like outdated beliefs for you about like everything. So you might feel like you're being rewired, or you might have certain like conceptions about like what it takes to succeed, for example. And like it gets completely smashed. Like someone shows up and just does the complete opposite of what you think you need to do to succeed. And they just make it huge, for example. You're just like, what? And so it's kind of updating that operating system and that belief system to allow more possibility for you and to allow you to make smoother, better choices, maybe even, and just so you can live a better life. Because sometimes the only thing hindering people is just like this outdated belief, and it makes them miserable when they could be in joy every day with nothing changed in their lives but their belief system. That might not be 100% true for everybody, of course, but it reminds me of, an example came in, but they're like, don't use that example. So never mind. I'll say it anyways. It's not necessarily related, but I remember watching yeah, this isn't a great example now that I think about it. That show documentary, The Tiger King, and now that I sit with it, it's like that dude probably had some issues going on, and you're like, probably, if you watch that, that might make it a bit more tricky of a situation to navigate. But I remember on another stance, I didn't watch too much of it. I think this a roommate of mine was watching it at one point, and I ended up watching a little bit of it. But I was like, man, this dude has like, in a sense, at least in the physical, certain like things that are really going for him, where he could just flip a switch and be like, I've got a lot of really cool things. I'm happy. To me is how it looked from an outside perspective. And that, like, if you were to look at things on like a mental level and just maybe something that happened in his past that made him start to be like that, or some other things, it might not be the total truth of the situation, by the way, but I don't know. There's sometimes I'll look at people and be like, huh, like they're not happy, but I feel like they really could be if they really chose to be, they really looked at it just a little bit of a different way or something, or really tried. But that's me. Yeah, not to judge them or say they're wrong for not being happy with it, but it's just something that struck me. Next thing they're showing me is a sailboat, and it's about the winds changing, and you might feel in some ways like the wind is buffeting you in all directions a little bit in certain ways right now. Or you might be mad because like the wind's like changing on you, like you get it to a favorable place and then it shifts and you're like, come on, you're like fighting against it. And it's really, again, saying go the direction you'd like to go regardless of the winds, and eventually the wind will be favorable. Because if you think of sailing, I took some sailing lessons when I was a kid, or someone signed me up for sailing lessons when I was a kid, rather. But there's ways to work with almost any direction of wind when you're trying to go a specific direction, even if you kind of have to go in like a zigzag to catch some of the wind in the sail and tighten the sail up so it catches it. Or if the wind's behind you, then you just open the sail up and, just allow it to carry you forward, things like that, of course. But for whatever reason, for you right now, the message is like, it's not about catching the right wind. It's about going the direction you'd like to go. And eventually the wind will favor you. So keep that in mind for some reason. If you keep trying to like reorient to like catch a trend, maybe, and you can work with trends as well, or like a something, I don't know. What is that an example? I want to see if I can get an example about what that could be about here. Again, like regarding relationships, like if you were to just be yourself, like you might be following like, oh, this dating coach is saying this, I'm going to start wearing this outlandish clothing and saying this catchphrase because some dude said that people would like this. And then and it's like you're trying to like catch the winds and the direction the wind is blowing, or it's like if you were just yourself authentically, like eventually you'd have someone who's totally into that. Or like as you grow and evolve, you find the person that's totally into that. Or eventually the wind or trend favors you in the direction you're going authentically. It just kind of doesn't matter what ways the wind is blowing, because you're kind of playing a different game at that point. Same with business, like with catching like, if you think of like the social media platforms, how like TikTok came along and like changed the game, and then like all the other platforms were like trying to be like TikTok instead of like playing to their strengths, and like may or may not work out for them, but I don't know. You kind of know what I'm saying at this point. Next thing they'd like to get to here, probably the last message, but they're showing me a business card here and someone who's like about to give up on something. Just like don't give up on your life, even if things seem difficult right now. Hopefully that's not all of you, but for maybe like one of you or some of you, like don't throw in the towel right now. Not worth it. And you might be throwing in the towel if you were to do so just before things got really good, or really changed for you. And you never know when that shift is coming. If you're someone who's doing the work, that shift is going to come, eventually. And maybe one of the keywords, things can change anyways, but one of the keywords might be doing the work as well. Like, what work can you do to change things and show up consistently to change things and rearrange things within yourself to change things outside of yourself? Like, that might be one of your keys if you're someone who's resonating with this part of the reading, or the specific message, rather. For others of you here, let's see. This is a weird one, but I'm hearing the phrase, life is not going to give up on you. Or like God is not going to give up on you, or the universe is not going to give up on you. And it's like, okay, within reason, I need to make sure I get this out right. What's the wording here? It's okay if you're not doing everything perfectly sometimes, as long as you're, depending on the circumstance, as long as you're trying. You know, at least in the universe's eyes regarding this, I'm kind of on shaky ground. So I just want to make sure I get this out the right way you'll get it, in the best ways for you. I mean, that is kind of the message, is like, life's not going to give up on you even if you think it is, or the universe isn't, or God's not going to give up on you even if you think God is, or however you're kind of conceptualizing it right now. It's kind of like there's a need for you not to give up because no one else is going to give up on you, or the universe is not going to give up on you, if that makes sense. So I'm going to end the reading. I hope they're showing me a lollipop, actually. They like to show candy sometimes at the end of readings, but with the lollipop here, I just feel like things will get sweeter if you keep going, is what they're showing me with the lollipop here. It might be unexpected. It might be in unexpected ways, but it'll happen. Cool. So I hope that helped and resonated. Whatever's for you guys, good. And I'm going to go to water signs in a second here. That one felt a bit different, but I hope it landed. I hope it helped. You're welcome. Perfect, spot on. Oh, there we go. You're welcome, Moon. The company sells tractors. There you go. There's a synchronicity. Does it get any better than that? What will it take for more of that to show up? The synchronicity. You're welcome, Tara. No, I hear that. You're welcome, Fruit Snack. Oof. One day I'm going to start this live up, and it's just going to be me on like a compression table hanging upside down or something, and we'll just be like stretching my back out. That wasn't a very good joke, but that you get it. Because I'm just always hearing like the position, and then my body pendulum's going sometimes, and I'm leaning, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stiff. It's been 3 hours. You're welcome, Tara. I'm so glad to hear it. So we'll start water in just a second here. How does it get any better than this? Well, it's causing some sort of shift, so I guess this is partly how. Okay, that is better. Awesome. So let's start with, would it be for that to go to start? I'm going to drink more water first and hang out a second. We're going to start now. So if you have a water sign, sun, moon, or rising, it's going to be for you when you see it. Have I been more thirsty lately? Yes and no. But yes, I've definitely noticed that. So if you have a water sign, sun, moon, or rising, it's going to be for you when you see it. Don't mind whatever I was just doing there. And I'm going to channel messages from my spirit guides, the angels, and source that are meant to help you out. That would be for your guys good, that you need to hear. And I'll be working with my intuition and all that as well. Let's start here. So they're showing me Lamborghini, and not to keep going with the tractors from the last reading, but one of the things with, I need to see what they're saying with it. They're talking about the story of how Lamborghini started with manufacturing and selling tractors, but then they switched to manufacturing and selling sports cars, which you've probably heard of. And the message here is it's about a track change. It's about you doing something completely different or something completely new you're adding into your life. That's unexpected potentially, or maybe something you're launching. And it's time is something I'm getting. And if you think of like Lamborghini, I mean, if you hear the story, I don't think this was this guy's mindset at all, but he could have probably very easily went, oh, I just manufacture tractors. I don't know anything about cars. I'm not going to try. I'm just going to stay in my lane with this. He could have very easily just did that. But he didn't. Then his company didn't. He made sports cars and was very successful with it. And he still makes tractors too. So something like that in some area of your life is happening, is what I'm getting with the track change you're on, where just something unorthodox or unprecedented or just very new for you is happening, or you're building it, or it's coming in for you as part of your life. And you need to embrace it is what I'm getting, and not quit because it's different, or think you can't do it because it's different than what you were doing before, or think you can't do it or add it into your whatever you're doing because it's unorthodox. It's like, what if that's the thing that will be really successful and will have you make a name for yourself if it's a business, for example. But it's really time to embrace that. Like, it could be part of a timeline change, but that's not the main message. It was more about a track change. So next thing they'd like to get to here, fully for that is good. They're showing me balloons and hot air balloons again. And they're showing you just kind of floating above the crowd, but you're alone. You actually seem kind of, in this visual, like you're kind of crying in your hot air balloons. Let me see what this is about here. There's this message where it's like, you're not actually alone, you're above the crowd. And this could be energetically as well. And sometimes we mistake that as loneliness or as a quote unquote curse, but it's actually a blessing in disguise, or the best thing the universe could do for us. Because it's like, if we were down on Earth, in this instance, it'd be like a stampede. You'd be like run over by a herd of cattle or something like that are stampeding. And like, you floating above the crowd is like your saving grace right now. So even if in some instances maybe there's some loneliness you're dealing with in some area, or maybe just entirely, it's kind of just like, that's okay. Like, that's exactly where you need to be. And eventually you get up to speed with your other hot air balloon people, and there's like a floating hot air balloon islands community thing in this visual that you like link up with these people, and that's where you're meant to be. So the other thing is, like, sometimes we're lonely and we think we messed up, or we went the wrong direction, or we should be back where we were, or down where our reference point is with like the collective or the crowd, but we actually are in transition to this higher place where we'll meet more people there or have more for ourselves there. So I'm also getting this message, like, you're in transition, and that could be part of like being lonely or something like that. There was also the word miserable showing up here. I'm just getting, you're not going to be miserable. You're also not going to be starving, because like Les Mis showed up, the play. And they're like, you're not going to be starving. So there you go. That's cool if you need to hear that. Next thing here, they're showing me like nuts, like cashews and like a trail mix type thing going on here. So let me rub my eyes and yawn. Ooh, excuse me. And get that message for you. So let's see what's up with that. Okay. So you know how like with trail mix, they probably at some point in the process have to mix it all together, and they're just saying the universe is going to be mixing it up for you. So for some of you, you might be in the future here, speaking of finding a crowd, you might be mixed into a crowd that unexpectedly you're not used to being mixed into, but it like fits, it like works. If you think of all the flavors of trail mix, if it's good, they all work together. They all kind of harmonize flavor wise. That was a interesting rhyme. But the other thing is like things being mixed up for you in your reality in a positive way, where if things have been bland, it just kind of gets more flavor going for you so you can enjoy it more. I also just feel like the universe is mixing more things into your world. It reminds me of when people mix flavors into like ice cream or something, for example, or like in a smoothie, when you have the smoothie rolling and you like dump more stuff in it and it like the color kind of blends in and the flavor blends in, kind of like that, where it's like you're finally kind of just getting more is what I'm getting. And maybe you even felt like you had all you could have, or like you were never going to get any more and you're just going to be this plain old banana smoothie, but then all of a sudden here come the blueberries and here comes this green mix and here comes this other thing. And so you're kind of getting the final mixture or just more, which is really cool, added into your life and circumstances. Beyond all that here, they are completely in a different message, just showing you being whisked in just the right direction for you really suddenly. And it's different than you expect, which makes sense with the track change, and just some of what we've been talking about with mixing it up. So, but it's like part of building, like the universe building something for you in your life, whether it's a new system for your life or a new structure for your life or a new something you're building. But it's something never before seen, at least by you, potentially by the world, but at least by you. And it's actually the best direction, honestly. So I'd kind of let the universe work with all that. If like new things are being added in or unexpected directions are happening, I'd roll with it. It's working is kind of what I'm getting. And you'll get this message in the future if it doesn't make much sense now. Like it's just kind of going to happen. So just kind of stick with it and you'll see what happens. That's what they're saying with that. So next thing with the banana, they're showing me a banana here. There's like this banana that's like on the ground. It's been stomped on and it's really brown. So it's really ripe here. So what's up with this here? You know, sometimes there are just certain things in our life that we have to let go of that just aren't working. Like you're probably not going to pick up that banana that's like mushed out of its peel and it's like stomped on the ground and it's overripe and like eat it or like put it in a smoothie. Like it probably just has to go in the trash or in the compost or somewhere, you know, that's not your mouth at that point. And there are certain things that have run their course and they're leaving and you just have to let them go. And it's fine because it's like, you're not going to put that in your mouth. And maybe that was supposed to mean something like regarding a relationship for some of you, but for others of you, it's a metaphor of like, you know, it's like unusable at this point, or just like it's not gonna work for you. So just move on is kind of what I'm getting regarding all that. Next thing they're showing me is a tree, but it's in the jungle. There's vines hanging down from this tree. There's ancient wisdom with this tree. It's like they're showing me the world tree, or that concept of the world tree that's usually in like cartoons or shows and things like that. So what's up with the trees here in the jungle? Here's a weird message. I'm hearing the words that Source is expanding for you. So this could be the way you work with Source, like if you channel, like the way you get channeled message, or maybe you're expanding your channeling, or it could be Source is just working more strongly in your life and like manifesting things more quickly for you or creating things differently for you. But it's like the way Source has been working with you is changing. It's getting better is what I'm getting. And don't judge it because you might freak out if things like change a little bit overnight or change on you. But it's actually vastly improving and you'll still like have your old way that works regarding this, like with working with Source. But there's going to be so much more that it might freak you out, but don't let it freak you out. Or if it does, then just stick with it and you stick with it freaked out a little bit until it settles, you know, I guess you could say. For some of you, this is literally about manifestation changing and it like speeding up in like a drastic way. And it might scare you with like how quickly things are manifesting. But if you just kind of like stay focused and present, it's like really easy to work with and actually a lot better. Because you can also create yourself out of negative things that way, if you think about it, like really quickly. Like if, this is going to be a very silly example because this is what I'd rather put out there with this. But if you accidentally manifest like dropping your juice or something like that, which sounds really silly, then it's really easy for you to manifest more juice, you know, if it's happening really quickly. Silly example, but kind of outlines the gist of what I'm trying to say. Next thing here, we're going back to the banana again here. you might feel like layers of you are being peeled away, and that's perfect right now. Or maybe you feel like you're being exposed, but it's actually like really working in your favor. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. If it's layers being peeled away, it's just part of your healing, and you need to let that go. If it's being exposed, or like both, even if people see an exposed you as a good thing, is one thing I'm hearing. And even if people like judge you for it, it won't affect you, is something I'm getting as well, if you were worried about that with that part of the message. But it's almost kind of like God putting you on display, if it's more of like an exposure thing, and people seeing you and the true you. And it's actually really beautiful, and perhaps never before seen as well. So just trust it's actually going to work out in your favor if you feel exposed. And exposed could be like attention on social media. Exposed could be being vulnerable with yourself or someone. It can mean a number of different things for different ones of you who are different places when you're watching this or listening to this, but you understand here. Tiger spirit animals showing up again here, but this tiger is like blue, interestingly enough. So what's up with the blue tiger? He's kind of licking his paw. He's kind of just looking at me. I think like this is just a common message right now. I feel like this has come through in like my free newsletter I put out there with channel messages, has come through in past TikTok lives I've done. This has come through today in different readings, but like just going your own direction and not being afraid to stand out is going to be a key to victory right now in every area. And the more you're willing to do that, like now, the easier it will be to do in the future. But it's going to be a winning formula for probably the rest of your life, is what I'm getting, or for a long time. And like, yeah, there are times where it's better to move in silence or quote unquote blend in. But there are, in general, standing out and going your own direction in a way that works with your intuition is probably going to be best for you. Be a little bit patient with it, with how it all pans out. But I'm just getting it's going to be better right now, because there's a lot of just old systems and normal things that are crumbling and not working the same way. And if you're willing to kind of approach things your own way and maybe go your own direction, you'll be able to ride that a bit smoother than people who are clinging to the systems that are crumbling, if you will, regardless of how that's showing up for you in your world. So they're done with that reading. So I hope that was sudden, but I hope that helped. And did whatever was for thy good. And resonated, of course. Ooh, and then, okay, so you're welcome, Jessica. I was planning on doing a full channel mode session for, excuse me, this live. I'm actually getting not to this iteration, probably for like energy conservation purposes. I have a really busy week coming up, actually. So I might hang out for just a second and talk with y'all, but I think I'm going to not do the full channel mode this time. Resonated for sure. Perfect. So glad to hear it. How's it get any better? Hey, Leo Diaz. How's it going? Cool. So glad it resonated, glad it was helpful. Is the sleep deprivation hitting? Kinda. Kinda. I hope you have a great week too, Jessica. Good to see you too, Leo. You're welcome, Robin. Glad to hear it. Water was the last one. Sorry, Sunray. Yeah, and the replay will be on YouTube unless there were any technical difficulties on TikTok's end where I can't download this and repost it. And I'll make a little post on the YouTube community section to let you know what's up if that happens. While we're here, if you'd like to go further with my work, I do have there's a couple different ways, but free newsletter with channel advice on the week ahead and channel messages on the month ahead, as well as exclusive discounts and other things. So that's a great way to stay in touch with my work and see what's, be one of the first people to know, like with things I'm launching or putting out there. That's a great way to go further with my work. You can also follow me on YouTube and Instagram as more like free ways to follow my work. Beyond that, I have one-on-one readings. I have energy healing and channeling classes that I teach. There's a channeling class coming up this week, actually on Saturday. And I also have monthly membership with a lot of channeled content, like direct channeling sessions, channel guided meditations that are uploaded monthly, and you get a whole library. So you can find all that on my website or link in bio if any of that sounds interesting or perks your ears up or anything like that. And you can also check out the MP3 store on my website as well for one-off channel guided meditations and other things to help with like specific areas. So that's my spiel though. That's what are my offers. I got the Let's Go Higher membership, but don't know where to start. Any suggestions on the order? I would honestly, what I'm getting to say is like start with some of the newer stuff and just maybe even just some of the latest posts. But if there's anything like in some of the more recent uploads that draws you, I would just pick one and choose it. You might want to start, what I'm getting to recommend for you at least is the full channel mode session, and like start with one of those and just see how that hits and how that hits energetically for you. And you may feel called to give a bit of space before you listen to some of the other ones, just based on the shifts that happen or not. And then just go see, like, are there any channel guided meditations that have an area you'd like to work on that really call to you? Like, if you'd like more peace, I think I just uploaded, last month's was allowing peace. And just see with that. And it's kind of like a tool you can turn to as needed, or you can listen to some of those every day if you're trying to like manifest something. If that's too much for you energetically, then every once in a while. But and then I know there's like a lot of extra content, so I would kind of explore and to see what calls to you if you feel drawn to it moment to moment. I don't know if that helps, but that's there's not really a specific order. A lot of it's meant to be timeless as well. So, but that's good feedback to have if people are getting overwhelmed when they sign up, as far as like what I can start suggesting for people who sign up. Heck yeah, Bunch Love Joy, you're welcome. Thank you, Honeycomb Hideout, for vetting the allowing peace one. Oh, interesting. I have not heard of core consciousness synchronism, but that sounds interesting. Oh, thanks for shouting me out, guys. I'm glad to hear it, Becca. And may all that work out well for you. Okay. But, oh, heck yeah, Abundance Love Joy. I'm glad to hear you love the angelic fires. I feel like you have new archangel friends. Well, you do, is what I hear. That's super cool. Yeah, and I don't have a 4 angelic fires class. I mean, we have the second class scheduled, the Metatron class for later this month. And that's if you've already taken a 4 angelic fires class, the first class. And there's payment plans available for that if need be. But I'll probably schedule another 4 angelic fires class for the next couple months here. April or May, probably. Am I going to be coming out with Yellow Package? Yes, I haven't done it yet, but that's probably coming soon, is what I'd say. Brandon, I've had so many. Oh, good to see you, Jade, by the way. But I'm glad to hear you had a lot of intense shifts since Reiki 3. Going to send you an email. I'd love to hear about it. Yes, please. And may it all continue in the best way. Should it be in the highest good, continue in the best ways, or just continue on the best trajectory from here? Following that, that's awesome. How's it get any better than that? So yeah, Yellow Package, probably, I don't want to make any promises, but I really plan on getting that out ASAP. So want to learn Reiki, but unsure. Yeah, I trust the timing of it. And maybe something else will call to you. I would say, whether you learn it with me or someone else, it's worth having it in your toolkit, is what I'd say. At the very least, for like just self-healing and shifting things. And honestly, I would, unless you're like intuitively or just really feel like, no, Reiki's the better start, I would recommend the 4 angelic fires for you, is what I'm getting in this scenario for you. So you might feel called to if you feel called to the 4 angelic fires instead, I would do that. Nothing wrong with Reiki, and definitely not to denigrate Reiki at all. For you, that's what I'm getting though. So it's cool. Okay, guys. So I think, unless there's anything else we need to talk about here, thank you so much, Honeycomb Hideout. I so appreciate that. I am asking for that for myself too, and I hope you have a great week ahead as well. So I'm getting ready to end it out. You're welcome, Dana. Glad to hear it. I am wishing you guys well. I'm wishing you guys a fantastic week ahead. It was so great to get to facilitate this for you. Oh, thank you, Crystal. That means a lot. I so appreciate it. And I'm so glad to hear that helps you. You have a great week too, Destiny. You have sweet dreams too. Thanks, Kishay. So appreciate it. Thank you, Michelle. All right, guys. Asking the angels to send some love your way and whatever else would be for your highest good. And I think thank you, 333. You're welcome. Thank you, Dana. So I'm gonna, is there something I need to see? Okay, I'm gonna hop off now, guys. I so appreciate it, and I will see you in the future, hopefully next week.